issues related to period poverty, as well as include in the curriculum a dedicated one lesson per week to teach girls on menstrual hygiene, and finally ensure that sanitary products will be obtainable in a timely, consistently, and in a way that respects the dignity of the concerned persons. Senators will equally be considering the doping menace threatening Kenya's impeccable global reputation in athletics. And this is a motion by the Senator for Nandi County, Senator Samson Cherargei, and so is the institution of measures to curb incessant high electricity costs in Kenya, a motion by Senator for Marsabit County, Senator Mohamed Chute. The Senate Speaker is in the chambers this morning. I now hand over for the live broadcast of the Senate. Enjoy your viewing.
Lord, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings us, your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. Do we have quorum? Sergeant, at times kindly ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
The Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Amason Kingi, has just directed the Sergeant at Arms to ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes, and this is to give some room to senators who have not yet made their way into the chamber this morning to do that, to ensure that the Senate raises the requisite number to commence business this morning. Before the Senate attains that particular quorum, allow me to continue taking you through the order of business of the Senate this morning. And another motion that senators are set to consider is the enhancing of highway safety and convenience. A senator done by Senator for Nyeri County, Senator Wahome Wamatinga, in conjunction with the Senator for Mombasa County, Senator Mohamed Faki. In this particular motion, the two senators want the Senate to resolve that the Kenya Highway National Authority, in collaboration with the Council of Governors, do come up with a policy framework on the incorporation of the road reserves for the roadside amenities in all highway designs. The Ministry of Health, Ministry of Roads and Transport, as well as Public Works, in conjunction with the Council of Governors, do undertake a survey to ascertain the specific amenities required but not available on the existing highways. And this is such as satellite medical clinics, fire trucks, and ambulances, as well as identify the most convenient locations to develop them. Finally, that the Ministry of Roads and Transport, and this is in conjunction with the Council of Governors, do develop public-private partnership guidelines on leasing of road reserves to developers, financing the construction of the amenities, and the packaging of the incentives to attract investors. The Senate this morning is also set to consider a motion by the Senator for Kitui County, Senator Enoch Wambua, on the drought mitigation program in public schools. A motion that seeks to have the Ministry of Education, in conjunction with the Council of Governors, do establish modalities to ensure that no learners are sent away from school due to lack of school fees, and ensure that children from vulnerable families have access to education. In the motion, the Senator seeks to have that the Senate resolve that the Ministry of Education, in conjunction with the Council of Governors, also do implement the effective school feeding program to ensure that children from vulnerable families in drought-hit regions have access to at least one hot meal per day, and that no child misses school due to lack of food. The senators this morning are streaming in the chamber, pursuant to that by directive by the Speaker that allowed for a 10 minutes period to allow senators make their way into the chamber this morning, owing to the fact that at the appointed time when the Senate is supposed to commence business, we did not have the quorum, and that is why you have that quorum bell ringing on your side, as well as this particular brief on the order paper this morning. Pursuant to standing orders of the House, standing orders number 56, subsection 1B, senators, a few of them will be seeking statements of making statements in regards to various issues. The Chairperson Standing Committee on Matters National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration will be issuing a statement relating to the activities of the committee. The Chairperson Standing Committee on Matters National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations will be issuing a statement relating to the activities of the committee. And similarly, the Chairperson Standing Committee on Matters Trade and Industrialization, as well as the Chairperson Standing Committee on Matters Roads and Transportation, are also chairs will be making statements in regards to the activities of their committees. A total of 30. There seems to be development in the chamber. The Senate appears to have raised the requisite quorum. Allow me now to hand you over for the live broadcast.
Clerk, proceed to call the first order.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Honorable Senators, I hereby report to the Senate that a petition has been submitted through the clerk by Mr. Nick Mouko Mwancha, a citizen of the Republic of Kenya and resident of Nairobi County. As you are aware, Article 1191 of the Constitution states, and I quote, "Every person has a right to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority, including enacting, amending, or repealing any legislation." Honorable Senators, the salient issues raised in the said petition are as follows: that the National Transport and Safety Authority, NTSA, is responsible for putting in place guidelines, rules and regulations for all road users, including motorists and pedestrians. That all roads should have provision for pedestrians' use in form of either traffic lights, zebra crossing, or footbridge to protect them from harm through accidents due to high number of speeding vehicles. That for a long time, many pedestrians, especially University of Nairobi students, workers and other Kenyans within and around the Chiromo area and Waiyaki Highway have had challenges in safety crossing the Waiyaki Highway due to lack of provision of a footbridge. Hence, they have to run from one side to the other amid speeding vehicles. That this trend predisposes both motorists and pedestrians to road accidents, endangering their lives and those of other people, and that the petitioner has made all efforts to have the matter resolved, but the efforts have been futile and the responses unsatisfactory. The petitioner therefore prays that the Senate intervenes to recommend that the relevant ministry and all government agency to construct a footbridge at Chiromo area of Nairobi to enable pedestrians cross the road easily and safely. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 231, I shall now allow comments, observations, or clarifications in relation to the petition for not more than 30 minutes. Senator Mariam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I thank also the person who bring the petition to this House. Mr. Speaker, we lost so many brilliant people because of accidents. Last month, we lost an MP because of road, because of motorist careless driving. Mr. Speaker, the rule of road, we're supposed to follow it. These borders supposed to be given instructions properly, and if they are not driving well, and police are taking also bribe to release these people, Mr. Speaker, we need, as much as motorists are giving us, there is advantage to have motorists in our area, because where there is no road, these motorists assist, border assist. But now, they are not trained. They are just boats and drive by any hauli, by any person. So, Mr. Speaker, we need punishment for those drivers who are driving recklessly. And last week also, there's students who got a road accidents. Their future, they have a bright future ahead, but because of our road, our drivers, when their life cut short. Mr. Speaker, we need an urgent actions to be taken on our road trafficking. And Mr. Speaker, there is don't drink and drive. That thing, if we follow it properly, it will minimize the accidents. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is a very practical petition. He's speaking to a real issue, and in fact, to my mind, Mr. Speaker, he's telling us that we have failed. That people continue to die because of crossing a road when roads are designed and constructed by professionals beats logic. Mr. Speaker, I therefore want to support the petition and make the following remarks. 1, even as we build a footbridge, are the traffic lights in Nairobi working? And where the traffic lights are working, Mr. Speaker, why is it that, Mr. Speaker, the traffic lights are working and the traffic police come there, they start interfering with the traffic lights are asking you to move, the police blocks you, and in the process, it promotes congestion. To me, Mr. Speaker, is lack of functionality in the police traffic department. My second comment, Mr. Speaker, is on the Nairobi Expressway. This was an idea which ordinarily should have been a game changer. But there are aspects of that highway that completely negate the purpose of the rapid transport. Namely, Mr. Speaker, motorists come all the way from Mlolongo, and upon arriving into the city, then they are unable to enter into the city. There is no entry either to take people to the Upper Hill CPD or the main CPD in the city center. So motorists are forced now to go again all the way to Museum Hill. Probably there is a need for a rethink so that there is entry into the CPD in Upper Hill and also the main CPD, Mr. Speaker. My last point on this very important petition, Mr. Speaker, is about Boda Boda. It's amazing the impunity demonstrated by Boda Boda in Nairobi. They actually just drive or ride their bicycles on the opposite side of the road. Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to inform Kenyans that I am doing a comprehensive law, a bill that will bring order in Boda Boda traffic. Mr. Speaker, I hope that this House, because the bill has already been assessed with the relevant departments, that we shall work on it quickly so that we can do to Kenya what Kigali has done, or Rwanda for that matter, has done to their Boda Boda sector, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Senator Veronica.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the petition that has been brought to the floor of this House. Mr. Speaker, the current number of fatalities in the Republic of Kenya emanating from road traffic accidents, pedestrian accidents on the highways, Mr. Speaker, and on our road network, Mr. Speaker, is alarmingly high. And indeed, Kenya is only second to Nigeria in terms of the number of traffic accidents that are happening in Africa, Mr. Speaker. It is shocking to note, Mr. Speaker, that the traffic department, which has been entrusted with managing and controlling the use of roads in Kenya, has not aided much or has not given much support to bring sober management of what is on our roads today, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, alarmingly, the traffic department has continued to receive tips and bribes on the roads, Mr. Speaker, even when offenders are blatantly breaching the traffic rules, Mr. Speaker. It is shocking, Mr. Speaker, that most of the accidents and fatalities that have been experienced in Kenya could have been avoided if we had efficient camera system, efficient fining system, Mr. Speaker, withdrawal of licenses for drivers who offend the traffic rules, Mr. Speaker, and a system that enhances the use of driving licensing policy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what is also shocking is that we have many road users who are never subjected to the normal licensing tests before the driving licenses are issued. If you look at the Boda Boda, Mr. Speaker, anytime you are driving on the Kenyan roads, you will find them cascading round the traffic, yet they have not gone through any form of testing or any form of preparation for the use of those roads. So they do not understand the road signages, they do not understand anything that is on those roads, Mr. Speaker, yet they have been given access to use all manner of highways. Mr. Speaker, I therefore want to commend the petitioner who has brought this petition to the House, and to say that, Mr. Speaker, this footbridge is not only needed at Chiromo, it is needed in many other places, and it's upon the Minister for Transport to ensure that pedestrians are safe, Mr. Speaker, they are able to use the roads, Mr. Speaker, and anybody found breaching, like in other countries, Mr. Speaker, like in Dubai, it is difficult to find an accident happening on their roads, Mr. Speaker, because any form of an accident, any form of an injury amounts to withdrawal of licenses, very stiff penalties, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the jurisdiction in the UK, you will find that some of the drivers who've caused accidents on their roads, Mr. Speaker, are given an option of a fine of, say, £100, or an option of being trained for another 2 weeks, where those drivers will be shown the effect of causing accidents, Mr. Speaker. They are shown pictures of accidents, they are retrained once again, Mr. Speaker, and once a license is withheld, it is not returned until the authorities are satisfied that the driver is now prepared to use the road in a safe manner. So, Mr. Speaker, I rise to support that petition and to say that, Mr. Speaker, we need to be more careful. Drivers need to be more courteous, Mr. Speaker. In many countries we have visited, Mr. Speaker, it is very easy as a pedestrian to cross the road. But in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, if you attempt to cross the road at Kimathi Street here or Moi Avenue, you will be shocked. You can easily find yourself in an accident, Mr. Speaker. So it's also upon the drivers and road users to ensure that they are courteous, Mr. Speaker, to pedestrians and to all road users. And that would reduce these fatalities and accidents, maybe by over 60-70%, by just having road courtesy, Mr. Speaker. I therefore support this petition and urge the Minister to not only build that footbridge there, but also look at all the black spots in the country and ensure that pedestrians are safe, road users are safe, and drivers must stop giving tips and bribes and any form of manipulation to the traffic officers, Mr. Speaker. Then we can have roads that we can call sane in the Republic of Kenya. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cheriot. Aaron.
Mr. Speaker, this is a very interesting petition. Interesting in the sense that it is in great public interest. Mr. Speaker, you are aware that today the Daily Nation is running a story, 72 hours of death, of what is increasing to be, continuing, Mr. Speaker, now to be a matter of great public concern, where we're continuing to lose Kenyans on the road on a daily basis and in large numbers. Something that need not happen, Mr. Speaker, in a country of our size and economic ability. When our good friend Senator Kipchumba Murkomen was being interviewed, or vetted rather, by the Committee of the National Assembly, he gave the country an assurance that within a short stay in office, he shall basically do what I'm struggling to find the right word, Mr. Speaker, because I don't want to be rude to the country, but what people who use common sense do in other parts of the world, which is to ensure that you put measures to deter bad driving. Because 90% of these accidents, unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, are because people don't want to adhere to the rules, to the traffic rules that are already set out, Mr. Speaker. It is not for want of good laws or good traffic laws, Mr. Speaker, that we continue to have these accidents. These accidents occur because of reckless driving most of the time, Mr. Speaker, where a driver can clearly see that this is an area that has been marked a maximum speed limit of 50, but you find people doing 80 and upwards of 100. There's a pedestrian crossing, but people zoom past it as if nothing is happening. And so Senator Murkomen gave the country an assurance, Mr. Speaker, that by use of technology which is easily available in the country, if you go through all our highways, Mombasa Road, the road going to the western part of the country, Thika Road, as well as all these major places where there are accidents, Mr. Speaker, is that there are cameras already available, which police most of the time use. But unfortunately, we have never been able to use the said cameras to deter bad driving. And it is exactly what Senator Veronica Maina is saying, Mr. Speaker, that people need to be fined. People need to lose their license. It needs to cost you some money, Mr. Speaker, when you make even a simple mistake, as simple as going 10 kilometers per hour above the requisite speed limit in a particular part of the road, Mr. Speaker. When people begin to feel the pinch, then Kenyans will begin to learn the good habits of driving, Mr. Speaker. And it is simple. It's a promise which I had hoped that he will execute within the first 3 months of his being in office. I want to demand of my good friend, the CS for Transport, that there can be no other way. Countries that have been able to bring down road carnage have leveraged on technology to ensure that bad drivers are first fined and eventually blacklisted from ever driving on public roads, Mr. Speaker. And there is no shortcut to this, Mr. Speaker. Until people begin to pay for their sins, they will not stop this bad habit of reckless driving, Mr. Speaker. We can put the bums, we can put all this infrastructure that you are talking about, but unless and until, Mr. Speaker, we eventually crack the whip on bad drivers, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately we shall continue to see the kind of results that we are seeing, which are really heartbreaking, Mr. Speaker, that in this day and age, when you leave for your workplace, you are not assured whether the roads that you're using are actually safe for use, Mr. Speaker. So I hope our colleague, former Majority Leader Emeritus is watching and listening to the sentiments of his former colleagues in this House, and together with the National Transport and Safety Authority, they shall be able to give us a solution the quickest time possible, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this petition, which I really support. Mr. Speaker, the construction of roads in Kenya seems to fall short of the standards that we should set or include. And Mr. Speaker, I'd like to support the petitioner and add that as we do our roads in Kenya, we need to know that it is more people who are pedestrian than those who have vehicles. So it is important that as we design our road network, that every person or every contractor constructing a road in Kenya must be able to provide spaces for pedestrians, must also be able to provide spaces that can allow crossing for persons with disability. And Mr. Speaker, this is a standard that we normally are shortchanged on by most of the contractors. I believe our laws provide for these standards, but the enforcement of these standards is not usually taken seriously. I therefore wish to urge that the CS Transport, Honorable Senator Murkomen, can actually take this matter seriously and know that the roads are not made for vehicles, the roads are made for people. And a lot of the accidents we have are not just accidents that are caused because of a vehicle. Many of those accidents are also because we did not provide for taking care of persons who are walking. So as we speak about the vehicles and the roads, I suggest that we start monitoring the true standards around building the roads to ensure that we accommodate all possible users of roads, by the way, in some areas, including animals, so that we are able to take care of that standard. I support.
Senator Mundigi.
Bwana Spika, naunga mkono mjadala wa mambo ya parapara. Tunaweza kaa hapa tukilaumiana mambo ya uendeshaji wa gari ama mambo ya Nairobi. Tumetembea kama mimi nimeenda Colorado, Dubai na nchi zingine. Lakini kulingana mambo ya parapara, wakati walianza kujenga walikuwa wameanza sehemu kubwa sana ya kujenga parapara. Lakini hapa Kenya unakuta hiyo mambo yote haikufanyika, na sasa kurudi kutengeneza hiyo itakuwa ni ngumu. Mambo ya magari yale ikawa ajali ni kidogo, lakini ukienda vijijini utakuta vijana wetu vile wanaendesha pikipiki hata wanjari. Kwa hiyo ningeomba kama waziri hawezi kuangalia kama kuna uwezekano kila county iwe kama mwaka mmoja vijana wetu wao akienda kupelekwa kuangaliwa kama wako wamekunywa dawa za kulevya ama pombe ama wako na akili timamu, kwa sababu kila siku kila dakika kidogo hata bila gari ama kwa barabara bila kitu yote inamsumbua, unakuta ameanguka na ameaga dunia. Kwa hiyo ni kitu ambaye tunafaa hii kamati ama Senate isue hatua kuonekane tutaweza kusaidia vijana wetu namna gani, kwa sababu vijana wetu wako hatarini. Utakuta hata miaka ingine inakuja, hata ukitokea mambo ya security ama mambo ya vita, na unajua nchi yote vijana ndio kila kitu. Hata utakuta hata watoto wetu, wasichana wetu hawatapata watu wa kuwaoa. Sasa kwa hiyo ni kitu inafaa isichukuliwe hatua as a matter of emergency. Asante Bwana Speaker.
Senator Mundigi, you concluded in English. You're not supposed to use two languages at the same time. So next time you're contributing, either you stick to English or you stick to Kiswahili. Senator Beth Singo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I stand to support this petition and say that we are really affected as a country by the loss of lives. Yesterday, I was very unhappy when I saw young people who were traveling along Naivasha route when they were involved in an accident and some students lost their lives. It is not good for our country not to mind about loss of young lives. So I stand, Mr. Speaker, sir, to support this petition and urge our friend, the CS for Transport, to ensure that road users are safe, not only when designing the roads, but also adhering and following the road safety rules. Mr. Speaker, sir, in our country, we have a new kind of emerging issue of the boda, the motorbike riders, who are also contributing so much to some of the road accidents. I would urge that when the roads are being designed, there would be a route where the boda riders can follow, then the pedestrian, and then the vehicles, so that we ensure there is safety for everybody in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't know about the licensing process that really needs to be considering and evaluating and vetting drivers. After a while, maybe after 6 months, there would be a fresh vetting to ensure that drivers who are on the roads are also compliant to road rules and regulations that will ensure safety of our people. I support the petition. Thank you.
Senator Miraj.
Asante Speaker kwa kunipa fursa hii niweze kuchangia kwenye hoja hii ya maombi ya malalamiko kuhusu barabara zetu. Kwanza nahisi nimetoneshwa kidonda kwa sababu tulipoteza uhai wa vijana 19 pale Pwani University. Na imekuwa ni desturi kwamba barabarani kutatokea ajali na hakuna kitu kinachukuliwa, hakuna hatua inachukuliwa kwa sababu ya zile hongo ambazo tunazishuhudia katika barabara zetu. Nasimama hapa kumuomba waziri wa barabara, kando na kuwa huyu mlalamishi ameomba kuwekwe hiyo barabara ya juu ili watu waweze kupanda na juu, kuna umuhimu wa kwamba kuwekwe ishara za barabarani, ama nikizungumza kwa kimombo road safety signs, zinahitajika sana. Tutanyorosha vidole kwa madereva. Ndiyo, kwa kiasi kikubwa madereva wetu ndio wanachangia pakubwa katika hizi ajali tunazozishuhudia kwenye barabara zetu, lakini sisi pia tunapaswa kama serikali kuweza kuweka hizi road signs ili tuweze kuwaongoza wale madereva wetu. Hawa wanaozungumziwa kwa sana, madereva wa bodaboda, kando na kuwa wanahatarisha maisha ya Wakenya, Bwana Speaker, wanahatarisha hata maisha yao.
na nimezungumzia kuhusu hongo zinazochukuliwa barabarani, kwa sababu Spika utakubaliana na mimi ya kwamba kuna vijana wengi ambao baada ya kukosa ajira wanapeana squad katika zile stage za mitaani. Mtu ambaye hajawahi kwenda shule ya kusomea ujuzi wa kuipeleka ile bodaboda, anapewa bodaboda na anabeba abiria na anahatarisha maisha ya yule anayembeba na yake yeye mwenyewe. Kwa hivyo ningeomba kukuwe na crackdown ambayo itawezesha kuonesha wale waendeshaji wa bodaboda kwamba wana leseni ya kuweza kuwapeleka Wakenya katika taifa hili, na pia kuwekwa hizo road signs ili ziweze kuwaongoza madereva wetu. Asante Bwana Spika.
Senator Sigei.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Road accidents, Mr. Speaker, remain one of the highest cause of fatalities in the Republic of Kenya. And when we speak about a petition like the one that you've read this morning, the first item that comes to one's mind is what is the reason why the particular gentleman is asking for a flyover to be erected across Chiromo Road, and it is only to speak to supporting or assisting the students who are generally crossing over from one part of the road to the other. Mr. Speaker, the biggest, other than the road traffic offenses that are normally the greatest in terms of supporting the issues to do with road safety, is also the need to encourage Kenyans to ensure that they follow road traffic regulations and rules. It doesn't help to have a flyover, which in most cases, and this is common, our people, Kenyans, do not utilize such facilities. Though the person in the petitioner before this house today is asking that such a flyover is erected, we need to enhance and also ensure that Kenyans generally and all the road users are encouraged to use such facilities whenever they are availed, because we have lost very many Kenyans, not because of maybe the challenges to do with the status of our roads or the roadworthiness of the motor vehicles or the condition of the drivers, who in most cases are the greatest causes of the accidents, but largely it is because of the inability of most of the road users to use facilities once they are availed for their utility. Mr. Speaker, even as we support the erection of such a flyover in such a place, we need to speak to all and most of Kenyans to ensure that any other facility that's available be fully utilized. One of the other major causes, as my colleagues have stated here, is also the use of motorbikes. It is not because of lack of laws or lack of regulations. It is because of the people, riders, road users, pedestrians and drivers not complying with the regulations and the laws that are in place. And one of the reasons as to why we can have a conversation about erection of proper flyovers without necessarily supporting or ensuring that our Kenyans are protected from road accidents is because of that which is already in law. We have as many regulations, we have very many laws in place, but they do not follow them. And as we encourage Kenyans to also support the government in ensuring that road facilities are made all over, Kenyans are also encouraged to use and comply by participating in creating awareness on the need to protect their own lives when they are using the roads. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Thank you, Honourable Senators. The half an hour meant for interrogation and comments is long spent. And therefore, Honourable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 238.1, the petition should be committed to the relevant standing committee for its consideration. In this case, I direct that the petition be committed to the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing. In terms of Standing Order 238.2, The committee is required in not more than 60 calendar days from the time of reading the prayer to respond to the petitioner by way of a report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate. I thank you. Next order, clerk.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, 19th April 2023. The reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Narok 1, Narok County Alcoholic Drinks Regulation and Control Fund for the year ended 30 June 2020. The Narok County Alcoholic Drinks Regulations and Control Fund for the year ended 30 June 2021. County Revenue Fund for the County Government of Narok for the year ended 30 June 2022. Narok County Bursary Management Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. Narok County Alcoholic Drinks Regulations and Control Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. Bomet County Education Revolving Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. Bomet County Bursary Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. Kiambere Mwingi Water and Sanitation Company Limited for the year ended 30 June 2022. Receiver of revenue statements for the County Government of Bomet for the year ended 30 June 2022. Kajiado County Executive Staff Car Loan and Mortgage Scheme for Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. Kitui County Empowerment Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. Baringo County Executive Car Loan and Car Loan Scheme Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. Baringo County Bursary and Scholarship Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. Baringo County Youth and Women Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. Baringo County Community Conservation Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. County Revenue Fund for the County Government of Baringo for the year ended 30 June 2022. Baringo County Older Persons and Persons with Disability Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. Receiver of Revenue for the County Government of Baringo for the year ended 30 June 2022. Baringo County Assembly Catering and Health Services Scheme Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. Water and Sewerage Company Limited for the year ended 30 June 2022. County Government of Nakuru Mortgage Staff Scheme Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. Nakuru County Bursary Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. Receiver Revenue for the County Government of Nakuru for the year ended 30 June 2022. Nakuru County Emergency Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. Nakuru County Persons with Disability Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. County Revenue Fund for the County Government of Nakuru for the year ended 30 June 2022. Machakos County Assembly Housing and Car Loan Scheme for the year ended 30 June 2022. Machakos County Bursary Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. Kisii County Alcoholic Drinks Control Fund for the year ended 30 June 2022. The report of the Auditor General on the receiver of revenue statements for the County Government of Narok for the year ended 30 June 2022. I beg to lay. Thank you.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Senator Catherine Muma.
Is it on? Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion. Aware that the Constitution has entrenched a strong Bill of Rights in Chapter 4, which recognizes human rights, including socioeconomic rights, and the principle of equality and non-discrimination, further aware that Kenya lacks a policy for guiding the management of these social risks in the design and implementation of infrastructure and other development projects, concerned that inadequate attention to social risks in the planning and implementation of infrastructure and other development projects at both the national and the county levels makes them unacceptable and ends up costing the taxpayer colossal sums of money in suits filed before the courts and tribunals by local communities and affected interested groups seeking protection from such social risks. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves that the national and county governments develop a social risk management policy that outlines the standards, guidelines, and procedures for guiding infrastructure and other development projects, both at the national and the county governments, and the national executive establishes an independent multi-sectoral agency under the authority of the Cabinet Secretary in charge of social security and protection to design a mechanism that can factor inclusion of social impact assessments, standards, and monitor their implementation in infrastructure and other development projects in Kenya. Thank you.
Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
These are statements pursuant to Standing Order 56-1B. Basically, statement by chairpersons of standing committees. So the first chairperson is the chairperson for Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration.
Mr. Speaker, I would want to defer my statement because the statements are not ready, maybe about 1 hour. Thank you.
Very well. The chairperson Standing Committee, National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 56-1B to make a statement on the activities of the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations for the period commencing 14th October 2022 and 30th March 2023. Mr. Speaker, during the period under review, the committee held a total of 26 sittings and considered 3 legislative proposals, 34 statements, held 1 approval hearings, and tabled 2 reports. The committee also undertook 1 county visit, and held 2 retreats. Mr. Speaker, in respect of the legislative proposals, the committee reviewed the following bills considered during the 12th Parliament and recommended the same for publication. 1 is the Disaster Risk Management Bill and the National Anthem Copyright Laws Amendment Bill. The committee also undertook a comparison of the Military Veteran Act number 18 of 2022 and the Military Veterans Bill, Senate Bill number 41 of 2021, and recommended a minor amendment to the definitions clause to be carried through an omnibus bill. Mr. Speaker, regarding statements, a total of 33 statements were sought from the committee during the period under review as annexed to this statement. The issues raised in three of these statements touched on relief, food distribution, and boundaries, and was therefore redirected to the Standing Committee on Labor, Social Welfare, and the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations. The committee has received a total of 22 responses to the statement sought, which was shared with the respective senators, and awaits response to 8 statements from the relevant ministries. Mr. Speaker, it's important for me to notify the House that yesterday we were able to receive further 4 responses, and therefore we have only 4 outstanding questions without responses from the relevant ministries. So it is not now 8, it's actually 4 now. The committee further undertook a county visit to Kitui County in respect of a statement sought by Senator Enoch Wamboa, CBS, MP, on the heightened insecurity in Mudhar Ward, Kitui County, on Wednesday, 26th of October 2023, and tabled its report on 29 November 2023. The committee made a number of recommendations to the Ministry of Interior and National Administration, the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPOA, the Kenya Wildlife Service, among others, and has been following up on the implementation of the said recommendations. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Section 3, Section 6, Subsection 3 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approvals Act 2011, the Committee and the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs held an approval hearing for the appointment of Engineer Chavet Kohome to the position of Inspector General of the National Police Service on 8th of November 2022. The committee's approval approved the nomination of Engineer Kohome to the position of the Inspector General of the National Police Service and tabled their report on 9th of November 2022. Mr. Speaker, the committee held its induction and workshop planning retreat between 9th and 12th of March 2023 in Naivasha, Nakuru County. The committee held fruitful deliberations with invited stakeholders, including the Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Interior and National Administration, the Chairperson, Independent Policing and Oversight Authority, the Inspector General of Police, that is National Police Service Commission, the Director of Criminal Investigations, and the Chairperson, National Police Commission. The committee also held a retreat with the Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, and the CEO of National Drought Management Authority, NDMA, between 30th of March and 1st April 2023 in Naivasha, Nakuru County. Mr. Speaker, a number of legislative gaps emerged during the deliberations held at the retreats, which the committee is currently considering with a view to sponsoring amendments to existing laws. Mr. Speaker, going forward, the committee intends to conclude its considerations of legislative gaps with a view to sponsor bills to remedy the same and undertake a county visits to various counties, including Baringo, Elgeyo Marakwet, West Pokot counties, Isiolo, to assess the ongoing security situation. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Chairperson, Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism. Okay, as trade gets its footing together, we'll move to the chairperson, Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 56, 1B, to make a statement on the activities of the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing for the period commencing 13th October 2022 to 31st March 2023. Mr. Speaker, the Senate Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing is established under Standing Order 228.3 of the Senate Standing Orders and is mandated to consider all matters relating to transport, roads, public works, housing, construction, and maintenance of roads, rails and buildings, seaports, and communication. Committee meetings. Mr. Speaker, sir, during the period under review, the committee held 26 sittings and one joint sitting with the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources. Business before the committee. During the period under review, the Speaker has committed the following businesses to the committee. 3 petitions. Mr. Speaker, we now have 4 adding to what you've just committed to this committee. 14 statements and 1 message. Petitions. Mr. Speaker, sir, the following are the petitions that have been referred to the committee and are at various stages of consideration. Petition concerning public transport in Lake Victoria between Mfangano Island in Suba Central Sub-County and Mbita, Homa Bay County. The residents of Mfangano Island in Lake Victoria, Homa Bay County, petitioned the Senate to have a public ferry to ply the Mbita-Mfangano route in Lake Victoria. The committee met with the petitioners on Tuesday, 8th November 2022 and engaged them on the content and prayers in the petition. The committee also invited the Ministry of Roads and Transport, who expressed commitments to answer the prayers in the petition. In concluding this matter, the committee scheduled to visit Homa Bay County from 17th and 18th March 2023. However, the visit was postponed at the request of the Senator for Homa Bay. The committee remains committed to conclude this matter. Petition 2. Petition concerning eviction and demolition of Buxton Estate, Mvita constituency in Mombasa County. The former residents of Buxton Estate petitioned the Senate following the eviction and demolition of their houses. The petitioners sought the intervention of the Senate to be accorded an opportunity for them to acquire the houses at the redeveloped Buxton Estate under affordable terms. The committee met with petitioners, the county government of Mombasa, and the developer of Buxton Estate on various dates. Due to the unsatisfactory nature of the responses received by the county government of Mombasa, received from the county government of Mombasa and the developer of the estate, the committee issued them 21 days within which to submit a report on the options available for the petitioners to own houses in the Buxton Estate. The 21 days lapsed on 14th April 2023, that is 5 days ago, and the committee is yet to receive the response. Petition number 3. Petition concerning the title deeds for properties bought at Jamii Bora Estate, Kisaju, Kajiado County. The petitioners petitioned the Senate regarding the purchase of houses and shops from Jamii Bora Charitable Trust and an off-plan housing scheme, but have never received the document since 2008. The committee is considering the petition and intends to invite the petitioners, Jamii Bora Charitable Trust, and other key stakeholders involved in the matter. Additionally, the committee has just received a petition this morning that the petitioner Nikki Muoko Mwancha petitioned the Senate this morning regarding the construction of a pedestrian bridge at Chiromo areas in Nairobi City County. Mr. Speaker, the committee will invite the petitioner and other stakeholders on that matter. Statements. Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant to Standing Order 52.1 and 53.1, during the period under review, the following 14 statements were referred to the committee for consideration. Statement by Senator Edwin Sifuna, MP, on the strike by the Kenya Airways pilots. On this statement, the committee was asked to investigate the issues surrounding the Kenya Airways pilot strike. Whereas the statement was related to labor matters affecting the pilots, the strike affected the operation of the Kenya Airways and raised a number of management issues at Kenya Airways. The committee engaged the Ministry of Roads and Transport and was informed that the government will pronounce itself on the strategic decision for revitalization of Kenya Airways, dubbed Project Kifaru, by September 2023. Statement by Senator Mohamed Faki, MP, on the illegal diversion of staff training funds from the accounts of the Kenya Maritime Authority, KMA. Mr. Speaker, on this statement, the committee received a response from the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs, which was unsatisfactory, and the ministry was requested to provide more information. We are still waiting for that information. Statement number 3, statement by Senator Lelegwe Tumbesi on the status of implementation of the Lamu Port, South Sudan, Ethiopia Transport Corridor, LAPSET project in Samburu County. On this statement, the committee is in receipt of the response from the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Roads and Transport to the statement and has scheduled to consider it. On the statement by Senator Alexander Mundigi, MP, on the adverse effects of the collapse of Ena Bridge in Embu County. On this statement, the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Roads and Transport, informed the committee that the bridge collapsed due to the overloaded transportation truck. Nonetheless, he informed the committee that the bridge was repaired and was now accessible. The committee established that the response was satisfactory and concluded the matter, and this was reported before the House. Statement by Senator Kathuri Murungi, MP, on the need for redesigning and realignment of Nithi Bridge. On this statement, the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Roads and Transport, responded to the committee and indicated that the final designs and tender documents for construction of an alternative route and bridge would be finalized by 31st March 2023. A few days ago, the committee is following up on the matter. Statement by Senator Christo Asige, MP, on road safety and universal design. On this statement, the Cabinet Ministry of Roads and Transport responded to the committee by indicating that the process of stakeholder engagement for draft street design manual for urban areas in Kenya was ongoing, and once concluded, it will be adopted for implementation. The matter was concluded. Mr. Speaker, I wish to, if you can give me a little bit of time, or you can defer, I can continue tomorrow.
Senator, you have 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, statement number 7. Statement by Senator Samson Cherarke, MP, on rehabilitation and upgrading of Mombasa Road section left in the state of disrepair following the construction of the Nairobi Expressway. Mr. Speaker, I may not be able to conclude my statement because this is supposed to be a very conclusive report to show that the committee has been giving its statements and work very seriously. So I urge you, if we can continue next Wednesday from number 7 to number 14. Yes. Otherwise, I may not be able to complete
Honourable
within...
Senator, proceed to lay your statement. The senators will go through it and they'll probe it at a given time. Just proceed to...
I proceed to lay. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senate, and thank you for the good work the committee is doing. We go back to trade, industrialization, and tourism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A statement relating to the activities of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism pursuant to Standing Order 56-1B for the period commencing 13th October 2022 to 31st March 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 56-1B of the Senate Standing Orders to make a statement on the activities of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism for the period commencing 13th October 2022 to 31st March 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, during the period under review, the committee held a total of 23 meetings. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee held its induction and work planning retreat from 5th to 8th February 2023 and met with key stakeholders. The committee consolidated a matrix of legislative bills from the stakeholders which will be incorporated into its work plan. During the period, the committee undertook 2 foreign travel engagements as follows. 1, participation in the 22nd EAC Trade Fair held in Kampala, Uganda from 8th to 18th December 2022, and 2, participation in the Industrial Park Study in Ethiopia from 12th to 20th February 2023. The committee considered and adopted the report for tabling in the Senate. Mr. Speaker, sir, during the period under review, the committee considered the following bills. The County Licensing 2022 Uniform Procedure Bill, that's Senate Bill number 9 of 2022. Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill seeks to establish standard uniform procedures for licensing by county governments. The bill mandates its implementers to adhere to the need to protect consumers, provide access to information on conditions for issuance of licenses, cost effectiveness in the licensing process, and prevention of multiple licensing processes. The committee processed the bill and tabled its report in this House on 12th April 2023. Then the other bill is the Startup Bill 2022, that's Senate Bills number 14 of 2022. Mr. Speaker, sir, the bill seeks to provide a framework to encourage innovation and incentivize the establishment of startups through incubation programs and a streamlined administrative mechanism of registration and operations. The objects of the bill include, among others, to promote an enabling environment for the establishment, development, conduct of business, and regulation of startups. The committee processed the bill and adopted its report for tabling in the Senate. Mr. Speaker, sir, during the period under review, the committee also considered the following statements. First, the status on the revocation notice of Granville Farmers Cooperative Society Limited by Gazette Notice 8427 in Machakos County, requested by Senator Agnes Kavindu Mudhama MP, and the committee requested a response from the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Cooperatives, Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development. The committee also engaged the affected farmers, the ministry, the Commissioner of Cooperatives and the liquidator, that's on Thursday, 6th April 2023, and the committee considered the statement as concluded. However, the committee will follow up on the supplementary and emerging issues within its mandate. The other statement was high cess levied on Muguka cargo transporters in Beere, Embu County, requested by Senator Alexander Mudigi MP, and the committee facilitated a response from the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Trade, Investment and Industry. The committee also engaged with the affected farmers from Beere, Embu Mira Traders Cooperative Union,
and the committee is set out to undertake an inspection visit in Mbeere, Embu County, to interrogate the issues raised in the statement. The third statement was a statement on the effect of government austerity measures on the hotel industry requested by Senator Godfrey Osousi MP. The committee requested responses from the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife, and the National Treasury is yet to receive the responses. The other statement is on the rise in roadside hardware suppliers in Nairobi City County, requested by Senator Tabitha Mutinda MP, and the committee requested a response from the Ministry of Trade and Nairobi County Government. The committee also resolved to follow up with the stakeholders and the process reminders for the responses. The other statement is a statement on the state of affairs at the KICC, requested by Senator Samson Cherargei MP. And this, the committee requested a statement from the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife, and the Kenyatta International Convention Center. The committee also had a meeting with Senator Samson Cherargei MP to deliberate on the statement. The statement was concluded. However, the committee will follow up on the supplementary issues within its mandate. The other one is a statement concerning the state of foreign direct investments in Kenya, requested by Senator Samson Cherargei MP, and the committee has requested a response from the Ministry of Trade, Investment, and it's awaiting a response. The other one is a statement sought by Senator James Murango MP on the measures taken to make Kenyan produce in external markets. The committee requested a response from the Ministry of Trade, Investment, Kenvest, and the Kenya Export Promotion Branding Agency, and the response from the ministry is being awaited. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee is scheduled to consider the following business in the next quarter. One, undertake an inspection visit to engage with affected persons of the liquidation of Dramville Farmers Cooperative Society Limited in Machakos County. Next, undertake an inspection visit to Mbeere, Embu County, to engage with affected Muguka cargo transporters in Embu County. Then organize a conference on high sales levies charged on Muguka transport involving the CECMs of the counties of Embu, Nairobi, Mombasa, Garissa. And finally, undertake a fact-finding visit to Busia and one Malaba one-stop border post to evaluate the status of regional trade and the Kenya-Uganda trade flows. I lay the statement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Chairperson, Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunities and Regional Integration.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 56(1)B of the Senate Standing Orders to make a statement relating to the activities of the Standing Committee on the National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration for the period between 14th October 2022 to 30th March 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration is established under Standing Order 2281 of the Senate Standing Orders and is mandated to consider all matters relating to the pursuit of national and intercommunity cohesion, the equalization of opportunities and improvement in the quality of life and the status of all persons, regional integrations, the East African Legislative Assembly, and Pan-African Parliament. During the period under review, the committee held a total of 21 sittings, during which it noted 5 East African Legislative Assembly bills, 5 EARA resolutions, 2 statements, 1 county visit, 1 committee retreat induction, and legislative proposals. A. East African Legislative Assembly EARA bills. Honorable Speaker, during the period, the committee considered the following East African Legislative Assembly bills tabled on the floor of the Senate and referred to the committee. A, the East African Community Competition Amendment Bill 221, 2021, Committee Paper number 14. B, the Community Appropriation Bill 2022, Committee Paper number 13. C, the East African Community Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2022, which is Committee Paper number 12. D, the East African Community Supplementary Appropriation number 2, Bill 2022, Committee Paper number 11. E, the East African Community Persons with Disability Bill 2022, Committee Paper number 15. The committee notes that in future, upon consideration of any bills referred to them, there will be a report to be tabled. B, EALA resolutions. Honorable Speaker, during the period under review, the following East African Legislative Assembly resolutions were referred to the committee by the Senate. 1, resolution of the Assembly paying tribute to His Excellency Mwai Kibaki, the third President of the Republic of Kenya. 2, resolutions of the Assembly paying tribute to the late Right Honorable Jacob Ahulanya, former Speaker of Parliament of Uganda. 3, resolution of the Assembly recommending to the Council of Ministers to urge partner states to strengthen framework for eradicating child sexual abuse in the community. 4, resolution of the Assembly urging the Council of Ministers to recommend the partner states to enhance gender equality in access to food, nutrition, security in the community. 5, resolution of the Assembly granting members of the Assembly permission to access official documents of the House to be used in evidence before the East African Court of Justice. C, statements. Honorable Speaker, during the period under review, 2 statements were sought from the committee, which are 1, a statement sought by Senator Beth Siengo, MP, on the actualization of the not more than 2/3 gender rule in the counties. 2, a statement sought by Senator Crystal Kegehi Asige, MP, regarding the matter of representation of persons with disabilities in the county assemblies. The committee, in considering response from the statements, and will conclude in the next 2 weeks. D, committee inductions and stakeholders engagements. Honorable Speaker, the Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration held its induction and work planning retreat between 9th and 11th February 2023 in Naivasha, Nakuru County. The retreat equipped senators with an understanding of the functions, objectives, policy directions, major projects and programs, challenges, legislative gaps, and possible proposals and opportunities for collaboration and cooperation with the relevant ministries and state agencies falling within the mandate of the committee. And this includes 1, the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government, the Ministry of Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, the Ministry of Information, Communication, Digital Economy, the Ministry of East Africa Community, Urban and Regional Development, the Ministry of Cooperatives, Micro, Small, Medium Enterprise Development, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, the National Gender and Equality Commission, the National Council of Persons with Disability, the Council of Governors, the Youth Enterprise Fund, Uwezo Fund, Women Enterprise Fund, the County Assemblies Forum. In the course of the community's deliberation with the various stakeholders, a number of legislative gaps were proposed and are currently being considered by the committee with a view of developing various legislative proposals. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee has also been able to meet with the Cabinet Secretary of Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government and the Chairperson National Cohesion and Integration Commission between the 22nd February 2023 and 1st April 2023 to discuss matters of national peace, cohesion and integrity. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee also conducted a county visit to Kitui for community peace dialogue aimed at restoration of peace and cohesion. The consideration of the 2023 budget policy statement. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee considered the 2023 budget policy statement and the medium-term debt management strategy, on which it made critical observations and sustainable recommendations on the policies touching on various challenges and risks that are facing the county government. Mr. Speaker, sir, in conclusion, the committee plans to carry out the following key activities in this session. A, consideration of legislative proposal for the County Youth Council Bill with a view of enacting it into law. B, a meeting with the Cabinet Secretary, Minister of East Africa Community, ASAL and Regional Development. C, undertaking county visit to Tharaka Nithi and Marsabit counties for a peace dialogue meeting. D, regular retreats with key stakeholders and state agencies which fall under mandate of this committee. Mr. Speaker, sir, going forward, the committee intends to conclude pending legislative business that is before it, particularly such business as may be subject to timelines provided under the standing orders or any other law. I beg to lay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Manzo.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to contribute on the next order. Your kind permission.
Senator Chirange.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted your indulgence to raise maybe one or two concerns on the statement that has been laid by the chairperson of National Security and Defense and Foreign Relations and the chairperson of Roads. Maybe one, Mr. Speaker, sir, on the status, I would have expected the chair of Roads and Transport, although time caught him up, to tell us, Mr. Speaker, because I remember when I raised this statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, on the issue of Mombasa Road, repair of lower deck of Mombasa Road after building of expressway, Mr. Speaker, sir. So I've heard in the media, and I've seen the media, that the Ministry of Transport, Roads and Infrastructure has indicated, Mr. Speaker, that they want to repair. And Mr. Speaker, you are aware that there is ongoing rains in the country, and when Kenyans who are using lower deck of Mombasa Road or the old Mombasa Road have a lot of inconvenience, Mr. Speaker, because when it rains, the drainage is poor. You remember the road is now has been, is it thin, Mr. Speaker, and therefore I would request that the chairperson of Roads and Transport to give the House timeline on how that lower Mombasa, old Mombasa lower deck underneath the expressway, the timeline that it should be repaired, especially, Mr. Speaker, before the lapse of the rainy season, so that Kenyans are no longer inconvenienced. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, and last, is on the issue of national security, defense and foreign relations, Mr. Speaker. I was keenly listening to the chair when I was coming to the chamber, Mr. Speaker, and I really wanted to get to know whether the Ministry of Interior, national government, is in the process of opening more registration centers. One, Mr. Speaker, before in the North Rift and in Kisumu, we used to have immigration centers where Kenyans, especially from the Nandi and the North Rift region, are forced to go all the way to Kisumu to get renewal of visa or get passport when the Eldoret office was closed. And Eldoret office is temporarily functioning. So I really wanted to know whether the Eldoret office will be reopened for the convenience of the people of Nandi, Uasin Gishu and the North Rift. And finally, Mr. Speaker, you remember birth certificates, especially for parents who are registering their children for class 8, and death certificate for purposes of succession. And it is good that you are a lawyer and you understand the importance of birth certificate, especially in succession. Where I come from, we only have 2 registration centers. That is in Kapsabet town, that is Mkwen sub-county, and Nandi sub-county. And it serves the entire the entire 6 sub-counties in Nandi, although one has been opened in Kabia Township in Masab sub-county. So Speaker, I would have expected the Chair to say in the budget that is coming to open more registration centers so that parents can conveniently process their birth certificate and allow them to register their children for KCP and KCSE, and also for processing of death certificates to allow our parents and other Kenyans who want to do succession in terms, not only in Nandi County, Mr. Speaker, but across the country to ensure, and even the improve of border posts like Malaba, like in northern Kenya, Mr. Speaker, and even the issuance of national identity card to allow the conveyance. Because, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, when you go here, Nyayo House, you get Kenyans as far as Garissa, Mandera, only to come for a service that these citizen services should be made a directory, so that a Kenyan should not travel from Mandera, from Kilifi, from Garissa, from Kisumu, from all the way from Malaba, Busia, from Bungoma, Mr. Speaker, from all the way from Lunga to come and just get a service, which they are paying for, Mr. Speaker. So is the chairperson and the Committee on Foreign Relations Defense should be ready to tell us that this border outpost and access to issues like visa, like passport, like death certificate, like birth certificate, Mr. Speaker, be accessible. So, Mr. Speaker, those are my only 3 concerns, and I thank you for your indulgence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The chairpersons, I believe they've taken note of those concerns. The Honorable Senator Fatuma Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to make 2 contributions to the statements made by the chairs. Number 1, I do thank them for the good work they are doing. But my concern is, Mr. Speaker, is the implementation of the good work the committees are doing. 2013 to 2017, we had implementation committee that did a very good job as far as committees' work is concerned. And I think over the years we have raised the importance of having implementation committee in place. So I'm appealing to you, if we could have implementation committee so that our work is successfully, to follow it up also with the relevant government departments, so that work is done to our satisfaction. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to alert the chair of security and the chair of trade, although I sit in security. Mr. Speaker, as a result of the rains today, the few Maram roads that we have, they are all swept by rain's water. Mr. Speaker, especially what is called security roads. And I think maybe at some stage we need to sit and look at those areas where the rains have affected those roads, so that we can have issues of insecurity not being affected as a result of the rains in our counties. And I thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The Chair has taken note on the need to have the implementation committee, and I believe it's a matter to be discussed at SBC. But we've taken note. Next order, Clerk.
Order number 8, the Prevention of Livestock and Produce Theft Bill, Senate Bills number 12 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for a legal framework for the identification of livestock, the movement of livestock, the prevention of livestock theft, the regulation of trade in livestock, the return of illegally acquired livestock and firearms, and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 9, the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bills number 9 of 2023, second reading.
Honorable Senators, we now resume debate on this bill. This debate was interrupted yesterday, 18th April 2023. At the time of the interruption of debate, Senator Ledama was on his feet and had a balance of 6 minutes. I do not see Senator Ledama in the House, and therefore we shall proceed to allow senators to continue with the debate. Senator Lomenen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity that you have given me. Mr. Speaker, I've been waiting for this opportunity because this is where I am here in this Senate to represent people from Turkana County. Mr. Speaker, if you go through Article 96 of the Constitution that determines the Senate participate in the lawmaking. Above that and on top of that, the Senate determines the allocation of the national revenue among counties as provided in Article 217. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion of division of revenue because, Mr. Speaker, the counties are really waiting for this fund. And most of the counties, especially those from the northern part of Kenya, they are really stranded, wandering because they get pressure. So if these funds will be allocated to these counties, we are exactly be sure that, Mr. Speaker, they will perform their functions well. Mr. Speaker, the reason why this division of revenue is very important. Mr. Speaker, you see, for these counties to function well, to perform their function that are meant to play, they need funds. And Mr. Speaker, just to set an example where certain counties, when the national revenue is being collected and distributed, you find there are issues of uncertainties. Like now, Mr. Speaker, you see areas like Turkana County, areas like Marisabit, maybe I can say marginalized counties, Mr. Speaker. You realize the issue of drought is uncertainty. It is throughout the year. The issue of disasters, the issue of hunger, the issue of famine is throughout the year. And you find that the fund that is allocated to these counties, they use all this fund for disasters, for providing the relief food, providing for bursaries, providing for all these issues that are emerging. Mr. Speaker, so when the revenue, CRA, having the criteria, they forget some of these emerging issues of disasters. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge the CRA and this Senate to consider issues that are emerging, issues that are so emergent in these counties, so that when they consider, they should consider to allocate funds that will specify to deal the issues of disasters, the issues of emergency. Mr. Speaker, there is also an issue that is always forgotten, and I've been also waiting for chairman of the National Security and the Interior. Mr. Speaker, if you realize very well, these counties, most of these counties are insecurity-prone areas. every time, Mr. Speaker, you find raids happen most of the time. Even I can say in a week, 4 raids happened in these counties. And I should become specific, Mr. Speaker, because I represent a county. When a raid happens, Mr. Speaker, the definition of a raid that people lost life. I mean, raiders kill people of that county or for the bomber. The other thing, Mr. Speaker, what they do, they take the property, livestock, I mean. And this livestock, when you see, Mr. Speaker, someone has read livestock, maybe camel, cows, or goats, for 80 years. And you find 80 years, these animals are just raided for one hour, 30 minutes. And this person is reduced to 0. From 100 camels, one camel is worthy to 100,000, Mr. Speaker. So when you have taken 80 years to rear that camels, to bring these camels to survival, but you find you are raided. What happens now? This person is reduced to nothing, and when it is reduced nothing, the poverty increases in these counties. And what happens? They only depend on the relief, and this relief, Mr. Speaker, the relief is not available. When you find that the relief is the National Disaster Management is supposed to provide relief, it is not there. These families that are affected do not receive the relief, and even the relief that are expected to come from the provincial administration, it takes logistical problems to reach there, and they cannot even 1 kilograms of maize or whatever. It doesn't reach, Mr. Speaker. So these insecurity issues are a big challenge to these counties. So when the county is addressing and making the budget, they forget some of these issues. They forget, and then once they have ended the budget, they find that, Mr. Speaker, they say, oh, okay, we forgot the issue of the budget, the insecurity. The other issue, these areas are vast. Turkana County is 77,000 kilometers square. You can imagine 77,000 kilometers square, which is over, maybe I can equate to maybe 3 counties. 3 counties. So 3 counties, and then you equalize with one with the county, surely it beats logic. So the vastness of this area is exhibited by services that are offered there. Now, 77,000 kilometers square, which has a population of over 1 million persons, and they only use one hospital, which is level 3, an early center. And someone someone who is sick from KBC, traveling all the way to Lodwar, and then is not ill from Lodwar. He traveled again from Lodwar to Eldoret.
Although though Rwanda population is not like ours, they have come up with the regulations which are able to create some order or sanity, or as far as boda and tuk-tuk business on taxis. And remember, Mr. Speaker, I'm concentrating on taxis, whereby people are ferried using these tools and life is lost. Because those old days, these were just for cargo, kind of, but now it's a mode of transport and a mode of communication by the private sector and including the government itself, Mr. Speaker. Because if you look at our chiefs, they have been bought motorbikes. If you look at the Kenya Power, which is a government sector, they are using motorbikes and the like. So it's something which is here to stay and here to work with ourselves. So I have noted, Mr. Speaker, in some localities, like the county government level, they have come up with what I would call circles, whereby the motorbikes sector in that region are made to be in a circle where there can be control, especially because of insecurity. You know, Mr. Speaker, the same motorbikes, apart from accident, they are also being used for other bad things, especially ferrying illicit brews and also this hard drug, Mr. Speaker, because these small tools can close everywhere in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, in other words, there are some modalities or measures which can be taken and lead to what I would call sanity or control. Mr. Speaker, long ago, there were times whereby the government could use different number plates to identify or even to control the movement of vehicles and even understanding who is where and what is this person doing. I don't want to dwell on maybe coming up with number plates alone, but it can also lead to order, especially through circle, because if you put numbers which can lead to identifying the movement and the behavior of the tuk-tuk riders and motorcycle riders, I think we can be leading to what I'd call a happy ending. Mr. Speaker, not forgetting that the economy also needs to grow, and we need to work with everybody in the same economy. And if you go to the growth of the same economy, Mr. Speaker, it's also good to note that with the consumption of petroleum and maybe gas, the same boda is put like at an average of 300 shillings per day to the exchequer. And if you convert this to tax, the data shows that about 60 billion annually revenue can come from, or it's coming, or the government is generating about 60 billion from boda and tuk-tuk sector as a revenue. And instead of losing this revenue, Mr. Speaker, I think it's a high time we come to what I would call order, whereby the sector can be learned professionally. How can this be learned professionally? Mr. Speaker, it's for this government and us to come up with new and better regulations, real-time regulations, which can adhere to the happening of the day, and even be submitted all the way down to the county level, where now in totality we can have a total control, and this now become a better or favorable income generating procedure, especially as far as these young people are concerned. Mr. Speaker, I think also because of lack of employment, our students after class form 4, they just rush to boda, where they can get earning for their livelihood. But if the national government, Mr. Speaker, can come up with maybe a vocational center in the entire county, may it be started by county at county level, whereby each and every county we can come up with a vocational center where our boda leaders can undertake short courses which can improve the standard of usage of the same machine. Mr. Speaker, that one can lead to a positive growth. Then, at the same time, we need also to come up with the workshops at the county level, because even maintaining and managing these bodas, Mr. Speaker, is leading to high level of accidents. Even if a rider is a good rider, and then the motorbike is not repaired promptly or regularly, then the same can also lead to this manner of accident and bad behavior. Mr. Speaker, it has become a culture of riding motorbikes, so the culture is not going away. It is for us as the government to come up with new regulations which can manage the same. Mr. Speaker, because I know maybe there are members who would wish to share or contribute on this, I want to stop there and maybe request Honorable Haika, the Chair, Diaspora and Immigrant Workers, second. Thank you.
Honorable Haika.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I stand to support the amendment as proposed by Honorable Member, and I want to second.
Honorable members, I wish to propose that the National Transport and Safety Authority Amendment Bill number 43 of 2022 be read a second time. I'll give the first bite to the cherry to the Honorable Member for Embakasi. So the Honorable cannot see the card here. Honorable Mwade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to also give my support for the NTSA amendment bill, bill number 43 of 2022. Mr. Speaker, there is need to regulate the issues of transport in the country, and especially the issue of boda as given and indicated by the mover. The issue of boda need a little bit more regulations, because you'll find sometimes there is need for training before they are actually given the license to ride. Just like we have driver's license, we should make sure that we have boda license before the boda operators are allowed to operate. Also, the enforcement on helmet has nowadays fizzled away. As it's not as it was in around the year 2020 when it was being enforced. But as we look to clamp down on these regulations, they also need to consider that the boda industry is a very important industry, because a lot of our youth nowadays are earning their living through the being boda riders. So there is huge, because of the huge unemployment amongst our youth, this is a good gap filler. Rather, the boda riders are able to fill the gap by sourcing, or rather getting their own source of income by being boda riders. So yes, I support the bill, but also let's consider on ways to assist the boda riders. We should establish a fund to assist the boda riders for down payment, and then the balance can be paid in approximately maybe 6 to 8 months later. That will continue to help our youth in creating employment. With those few, I wish to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mawathe. The Honorable Mary Maingi, member from where? She's not in. The Honorable Mary Maingi has stepped out. The Honorable Beatrice Kemei, member for Kericho County. The Honorable Ken Chonga, member for Kilifi South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity on this bill. Madam Speaker, history will tell us how important the border sector is. If you could recall, like some 30 years ago, sometimes it used to take the whole day for a public service vehicle to be available for communication for road users. And life by then, Madam Speaker, was very horrible. At times, if you miss the bus in the morning, you have to wait until the following day. That's when now you may be able to do your journey. Things have changed, but these things have changed for both better and worse. As I was listening keenly to the move of this bill, it really took me down to where I come from and look at the situation the way it is. Indeed, there is all the need. There is a reason why this sector needs to be moderated, irrespective of all the good that it has brought to the country. Well, we have heard, even our former president last year came out openly to elect this sector of border sector on how much income generating it is making to the country and how it is contributing to the GDP. That is all good. But at the same time, so many things have really gone out of place. It's an industry that one can actually train in one day and ride the same day. Not taking cognizance of the consequences of any ill that may come a long way by riding a motorbike without knowing the regulations that the transporter require. As the mover said, Madam Speaker, within the East African region, we know this is a reliable mode of transport. But in some countries, things are done differently. I've actually been watching with dismay a border carrying 4 people when it is meant to carry 1 person. Honestly, that is a disaster that is in making, implying therefore something somewhere is not being done right. In Rwanda, for instance, Madam Speaker, a border will never and shall never carry more than 1 person. A border rider must have a helmet, and the passenger being carried must have a helmet. A border is not an exclusion to observing the traffic laws. When the lights are red, all PSV, all vehicles actually, all mobiles need to stop. But what is happening in Kenya? You find the lights are red, still the rider goes on. Then he meets an oncoming vehicle, accident happens. What kind of regulations are there to moderate this? Day in, day out, the numbers of border riders is increasing. Yet, the modalities under which we can put this sector in control are not there. I'm not saying that the border sector should be shut down. What I'm saying, Madam Speaker, here, we need to come up with the proper mechanism. Because if it is possible in Rwanda, I am very sure it is equally possible in Kenya. Most of the border riders are young people. These are the generations, this is the generation that we expect tomorrow to be able to move this economy to a second level. Go to Coast General Hospital, you'll find there is a separate ward that has been, there's a ward that has been actually with maintaining accident, passenger accidents. I don't know why I should put it. Rather, there is a special ward to take care of border riders who get accident. Go to Kilifi, the story is the same. You come to Kenyatta, the story is the same. And for how long shall we sit and watch our young men and women actually die? The concern comes here, and I think this bill is so timely to serve the generation to come. Put proper structures. If possible, there should be demarcated areas where the border riders should be riding to avoid loss of lives, to avoid accidents, and also even to avoid injuring the other parties who may not be party to this accident. Madam Speaker, I stand to support this bill.
Very well, member for Kilifi South. I can see an intervention by the Honorable Mawathe, member for Embakasi South. What is out of order?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to recognize and acknowledge the presence of Ruben Primary from Embakasi South constituency in the gallery, led by the head teacher, Madam Nancy Motai. Thank you. And these are the leaders that are elected in Ruben Primary, the student leaders within the school. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Mawathe, I know that you have recognized a school from your constituency, but be informed that they had already been recognized by the Speaker. Let's proceed, honorable members. The Honorable Geoffrey Ruku, member from Mbeere North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support this amendment bill. The transport sector in the Republic of Kenya, Madam Speaker, need a lot of, streamlining so that it can take care of the emerging issues. The economy is growing, the population is growing, and Madam Speaker, there's no law that is retrogressive. Law must be progressive, and be progressive in terms of the changes which are happening within the society, and more so the changes which are happening within the transport sector of the Republic of Kenya. As mentioned within the articulation of the honourable member, the border sector has grown, and it is huge in each and every constituency in the Republic of Kenya, and this needs to be well regulated by well thought law. And this has come at a time when the NTSA and other related supporting sectors need to be relooked in a proper manner. Madam Speaker, the NTSA plays a very critical role, and it is well placed within the Ministry of Interior, as it is opposed. Many would think that they should be placed within the Ministry of Transport, and it is placed within the Ministry of Interior because of its critical, the critical factors, or the critical essence, the critical role that it plays to facilitate the economy. So, Madam Speaker, I support this amendment and urge the entire House to fully support so that we can regulate this sector in the most appropriate manner, but also to look at the emissions, more probably in the future amendment, the emissions which are affecting our environment. And these emissions come as a result of huge, many vehicles and many engines which probably are not very, very well calibrated and don't meet the required standard, and end up emitting huge amount of carbon into the environment from the transport sector. This is something which also can be looked at in the future amendment of the same act. I support, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ruku. The next one is the Honorable Innocent Mugambe, member for Lukuyani.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I wish to support the amendment motion by saying that the border sector in the country should be looked at as part and parcel of the transport system. For a very long time, people, or rather, we've been dehumanizing this sector. But it is indeed an important sector in terms of transport, of movement of people and goods in the country. Many parts of this country, Madam Speaker, have very poor road network, a very inefficient transport system, and the people who come in to aid in moving people and goods in such areas are the borders. And we must give credit to this. In 2008, when the import duty on these motorcycles that are below 250cc were given, they would come in the country with duty-free import. But despite it helping in aiding the transport sector in the country, it is also maligned with a number of issues because of lack of proper policy, regulation, proper policy and regulation framework in the sector. In the border sector, we've seen gangs taking advantage of the ease of movement of borders to rob people. We've seen them being unruly. We've seen people riding borders without licenses. We've seen people giving their children motorcycles to drive, and this has led to a lot of losses of life and other societal menace. In 2019, in NTSA report, we saw that the deaths from borders were actually more than deaths that came from motor vehicles, drivers, and their passengers. So this basically calls for a total paradigm shift on how the structure and management of the border sector is handled in this country. This calls for policy shifts to address the problems and challenges that are brought about by the border sector in order, one, to save lives of the riders and the passengers. Number two, to create harmony and proper structures in the sector, and to allow our young people and other investors in the sector to benefit from it. But this, to me, as I would like to support the mover that NTSA should work this in close collaboration with county governments because of the sheer numbers of borders, because of their proximity to access county offices, such that the counties will also play a big role in terms of regulating the border sector. I support, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Samburu County, Honorable Pauline.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Lengoris
is my name. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this chance to contribute on the motion of amendment that is in the floor of this House. And I want to thank the member for bringing up this issue, because I think the border issue is an issue that has affected the whole of this country. We also understand that the border sector is a very important sector in the economy of our country, particularly in the area where I come from. We have a lot of challenges with the road networks, and most of places are impassable with the vehicles, and the border has come as a relief to most of the residents of Samburu County. So this is a very important sector to particularly people of the northern Kenya who have a very bad road networks. The border sector is also very important because it has created a lot of employment to majority of our youths who could have been staying idle at home and doing nothing. So most of the youths who are unemployed have engaged into the sector, and the sector has become their daily bread. They feed their families through the boda boda sector. They also educate their children through the boda boda sector, and it has created employment to most of them. And we thank this sector for allowing them to engage into this kind of work. It has also, the boda boda sector has also brought a lot of revenue, especially to the counties and even to the national government, because they are also paying the levies, and they have also contributed to the growth of the economy of our country. Madam Speaker, there are challenges that are associated with the boda boda sector in this country. It is true that we have experienced a lot of accidents caused by the boda boda, because we feel that there is a lot that needs to be done to regulate the boda boda sector and the transport sector in general. Because I think most of the boda boda riders just buy the boda boda and go to the road without even understanding the road signs and also the rules that are pertain to the kind of business that they're engaged in. So we call upon the transport sector to try and regulate this kind of transport, because we have experienced a lot of accidents. You go to most of our hospitals, as has been raised by the mover of this motion, most of the accidents are caused by the boda bodas, and we have also lost a lot of lives of the young people. So I will agree with our members here that a lot needs to be done. It's a very important sector to all of us, and a lot needs to be done by the transport ministry together with NTSA, because the boda boda riders need to be educated, they need to be guided, they need to be supported with the trainings, they need to be shown always on how to do the riding and to be safe, and also to be safe on the passengers that they are carrying. So I stand up to support this motion and request that we should move on to regulate this important sector, such that our people will be educated, they will be supported, they will be trained, and they will be shown on how to engage into the business safely to reduce on the kind of accidents that we are currently experiencing. Madam Speaker, we have also experienced a lot of harassment because we engage ourselves as members of parliament, because we represent people. The members of the transport sector, especially the boda boda riders, have also been harassed so much by the police because of corruption. The little they get from the work they do, much of it goes to the police because of the corruption that we experience on our roads. So, Madam Speaker, together with the amendments that we are bringing to this motion, I think the transport sector need to get the police out of the corruption they are engaging right now, so that they will do their work without interfering with the little that the boda boda riders get, and do their work without requiring them to pay them money when there is something wrong with the motorbikes, so that we can be able to reduce the accidents we are experiencing now. And also, the boda boda riders will engage into the business knowing that there are rules and regulations that governs the kind of work they are doing. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support the amendment motion. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Narok North. Member for Narok North. Please try to trace the Honourable Member for Narok North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to put my voice on the amendments of this bill and to support the mover and to thank him for thinking about our youth. And the boda boda sector is a very important sector, and it needs to be supported. Therefore, I support the amendment by the NTSA to make sure that they put the regulations to make sure that these young men or our youth are comfortable as they carry on with their activities, because that is the only source of livelihood that they have. And as Parliament, we know that these young people are our supporters. They vote for us, and we need to make sure that they are also comfortable when they are carrying on with the work that they do. And it's important for us to make sure that, for NTSA to make sure that these young men are trained so that they can have helmets to make sure that the rider and the passengers are safe, and also be supported to make sure that these young men have some shelter wherever they work, because this is another form of being employed, and that's how they earn their living. And you remember when we are doing our politics, we always promise them that we will protect them, we will make sure that they are comfortable, and the only way that we can make sure that they are comfortable is by making sure that these orders, regulations are there to protect them so that they can also carry on with their work comfortably. And also, I would urge the police to give these young men an opportunity to look for an earning, because that is the only way they can support their families and their children, because they harass them. It's like when you look at that business, people look at it like it is a business that is not genuine. Yet, when you are in a hurry, you sometimes even tell your bodyguard, please, can you rush using a boda to where we want, or deliver this message to whoever it's going to be delivered to. So we need to take it seriously, and we need to support it to make sure that they get their licenses, they are helped to get their licenses and supported, and to make sure that they have helmets, to make sure that they also have shelter. And the government should chip in to make sure that these people are trained, so that they don't just buy a boda and then the next day they are there riding it, yet they don't even know the laws that they are supposed to follow as they ride their bodas. So I stand to support the amendments, and also thank the mover for bringing this very important discussions here so that we can chip in and support our youth. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Cecilia Gitit, member for Turkana County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support this motion and congratulate the mover. Madam Speaker, border sector is a necessary evil to all of us, and most specifically to the northern Kenya, as well put by my colleague from Samburu, where there are no roads. Border remains our ambulances. They remain our best mode of transport because most of our roads are impassable, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, border sector has contributed a lot to our economy, and it has created jobs to the young people of this nation. Madam Speaker, at this moment when fuel prices are very high, motorbikes remain the best mode of transport because their fuel consumption is low and they are cost effective, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, considering all that, the border sector faces various challenges. One challenge is the failure by the NTSA to train the border riders, Madam Speaker. These people just buy these motorbikes, they go into the roads without knowing the road uses, the safety measures on the road, and all that pertains road use. And this accounts to the high number of accidents we witness in our country, Madam Speaker. The border riders are also facing exploitation by the police, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the border riders are also facing exploitation by the owner of the motorbikes. If you look at the arrangements, these people get these motorbikes, some of them you will have to pity them. You find that a owner of the bicycle gives a young boy the bike, then at the end of the day, the owner of the bike has to be given, let's say 500 shillings, Madam Speaker. And now that the borders are many in these stages, transport stages. You find that at the end of the day, the young man has not made even a single shilling, but at the end of the day, he has to give the owner of the bike 500 shillings at the end of the day. So it is a challenge, Madam Speaker. The other exploitation these people are facing, Madam Speaker, is exploitation by the credit facility firms. There are these firms that are giving boda boda the bikes so that they are paid maybe on weekly basis. And looking at the difficulty we are going through now, the economic hard times, Madam Speaker, the boda boda riders are not making good money to enable them pay these firms that are giving them these bikes on credit. So you find that, Madam Speaker, most of them can service a loan, and then when it has remained very little amount, as little as 2,000 shillings, the firm comes and repossesses the bike. Yet someone has already serviced the bike, paid around 180,000, and it is repossessed for failing to pay only 2,000 shillings. Madam Speaker, there are many regulations that this August House should consider so that we cushion our young people from exploitation of this nature, Madam Speaker. I therefore support this motion that NTSA should really look into this matter. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Member for Turkana. The Honorable Kamene, Member for Machakos County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice on this amendment bill. Madam Speaker, we are all aware that the boda industry plays a huge role in the transport sector in this country. This sector has mushroomed in the last couple of years in a very dynamic way, of which, when we look at it, we can say the government was not prepared for this kind of mushrooming. And that is why, at a time like this, proper planning is really needed so that to bring this sector into order. In fact, the NTSA ought to sit down with the Ministry of Roads to ensure that these bodas are given their lane when it comes to the road, because it's like they are taken for granted and they have to squeeze themselves as they maneuver to transport people from one station to another. And also, when it comes to the health, to their health, insurance has to be considered, and they have to be given nice and friendly packages that will make them, when they get accidents, that they are able to receive treatment well. This sector is serving a great role in our transport, because it has created employment for our youth. It has also helped this business to thrive in a special way. The hustlers, or let's say the low income generating, and especially the market women that go to Sokos early in the morning, this sector really plays a big role. And it is high time also the police force gives this sector the respect, and they ought to work together to ensure that the boda sector gets its face the way it is required, because it's like they are somehow taken for granted. And we know this is a sector that is very dear to this country. I support the amendments. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Wajir North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I contribute to the debate, I would wish to bring to your attention that catching the Speaker's eye
has become a serious challenge for members of parliament. We have to do so electronically, but at times you will meet that the challenges keep on going and those who are on top are least considered. This is just for your attention.
Honorable member, you are completely out of order. You are out of order totally.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But honestly, it is in our rules. Mr. Speaker, in contributing to the motion, I really agree with the intent and purpose of the amendment by my colleague. The motorcycle sector is of immense importance to this economy, but it has not been regulated, not because there are no laws sufficient enough to do the regulation, but I believe that is an oversight on the part of the agencies concerned. The NTCA Act being amended, sought to be amended 43 of 2022, Mr. Speaker, must be read with the Traffic Act. Indeed, the motorcycle, whether it is 3-cycle or 2-cycle, is a motor vehicle. That means it comes under the purview of the Traffic Act, and it is so defined very well. It is mechanically propelled vehicle. So it should be well understood that when we are seeking this amendment, it is read alongside other statutes that are in existence, and we only improve on what exists than bringing conflicts between different statutes. However, the motorcycle sector has been growing immensely. It has provided jobs, employment, swift transports, more so in unmotorable roads, Mr. Speaker. However, it has had serious challenges. There was lack of training, there is lack of licensing and regulation on the part of NTSA. For me, there is no lacuna in law. It is sleeping on the job on the part of NTSA. Why we always drag in the police for corruption? It is because they are not licensed, they don't seek training, they don't follow the laid down procedures, Mr. Speaker. From where I come from, it only goes for a camel to acquire a motorcycle. And you are on the road the next hour, immaterial of whether there is a police officer. They don't know because of the illiteracy rate. They don't know that there are regulations that one has to conform to. So it is an issue of really an outreach than our limitations on the part of our legislations, Mr. Speaker. This must be well understood. They are numerous. I really agree with actually the intention of the mover to regulate this sector, but it is an issue of implementation, enforcement, than coming up with enforcements as such. Motorcycles have been defined actually to an extent that a motorcycle is a public service vehicle. If you look at the definitions that precede the Traffic Act, it is not a matatu, it is not a motor car, it is a motorcycle, yet a motor vehicle, and yet can carry passenger, but to a limit. This should be very clear in the minds of before we contribute. However, Mr. Speaker, I think what we need is coordination. The fact that the mover has alluded...
What is out of order? You are carrying your hands up. Okay, go ahead. One important aspect the mover has alluded to, the fact that we must have coordination between county governments and NTSA on the part of the national government, will create more chaos to an already chaotic sector, Mr. Speaker, in my view. We should have one national inventory, one national system to supervise, regulate, license this sector, in my view. I can't see why Wajir should have a different plate for its motorcycles, different from Kiambu. Of late, the motorcycles, as much as they are important to the economy, they have also been serious contributors to crime in this nation. They are being used to traffic human beings,
mostly aliens. They are being used to traffic drugs from Ethiopia. They are being used to traffic weapons, arms that are being used in the capital rustling, also in the North Rift and the Isiolo regions. They are a menace for sure, a nuisance. That doesn't mean that we are deficient of laws. All we need, do we really enforce our laws as we pass in this House? With those few clarifications, mine is to say that the sector is very important, yet laden with a lot of risks. The risk of owning a motorcycle, the risks that they contribute to the crime in this country. In Wajir North, where I represent, Mr. Speaker, it is on the Ethiopian border. Motorcycles are used to bring in cannabis sativas up to Nairobi, using unmotorable roads. They are used to bring aliens to the city of Nairobi. Motorcycles are used to transport guns that are being used in cattle rustling in Rift Valley. Actually, the government should invest on our borders. On our borders, if we are to maintain cattle rustling in North Rift, because we are the ones, these motorcycles are the ones that provide the weapons that are being used to kill, maim, break bones, and actually kill people in North Rift. Yes, I do appreciate the sector is important. I don't stand and agitate for its abolishment. However, it requires stringent, thorough, tough regulations. And the regulations do exist. It is just calling upon the NTSA to do its part. It's like they are sleeping on the job. They are not doing their work. The laws are there. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support the intent and purpose of the amendment, but I could kindly seek your guidance to make sure that it is read with existing laws before we make amendments. Thank you.
Well said, Honorable Sane. This chance goes to the member for Runyanjes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And from the onset, I wish to support this amendment because the border industry and the three-wheeled industry is an industry that is accommodating very many young people since the introduction of these borders during Kibaki time. Mr. Speaker, we will all admit that thousands, hundreds of thousands of young people are into this business, trying to earn a living, trying to educate their children through the income that they get from this industry. And so there is need to regulate to ensure that NTSA comes up with the regulations that will ensure that this sector is streamlined. Mr. Speaker, if you listen to most of the young people who are in this industry, they'll tell you that they are harassed so much by the police. And this happens mainly due to sometimes lack of these regulations and the enforcement of the existing ones. So we need to cause and to push NTSA to come up with ways of regulating this industry, because it is likely that in the coming years, Mr. Speaker, we will have so many people in this industry, in this business, because we believe it contributes so much to the creation of jobs. Mr. Speaker, most of us have been out there in the Western countries, and even in some of the African countries, and you will see how orderly this industry is in some other countries, and for example, Rwanda. And this is because of the regulations that are there and the enforcement of the same. So NTSA has a duty to do to come up with more regulations so that we can cushion these people from from the harassment they get from the police. And also, in the same spirit, Mr. Speaker, cushion the border from the exploitation, like it has been said by one of the honorable members here, whereby a young person who is trying to find something to do will go and borrow a border for 100,000 or so, maybe around 120,000, and they end up paying up to 250,000 for a motorcycle that they borrowed at 120. Yeah? So more than half of the cost of the border goes to some of these institutions that are giving credit to our young people. So, Mr. Speaker, very soon I'll be coming up with an amendment that will seek to caution these young people who are in the border industry from the exploitation from the institutions that are offering this credit. You fail to pay for the border, or you delay in paying the installment, they come and collect your border, then go and sell it, and you're left with nothing, yet you already covered so much money in an effort to buy or to acquire a motorcycle. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I wish to support. Thank you.
Thank you. Member for Bonchari.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to add my voice to this very important proposed amendment. The border subsector is very important in the economy because of its contribution in transportation of people. You look around the country, as a matter of fact, in the region, you find that the only mode of transport that is left is border. And on top of that, it has created employment for many people who otherwise would go without food on their tables. However, there are challenges that face this sector, very important sector, as I've already said. The fact that many of the riders are not trained and they cause accidents. You go to any county hospital, you go to any health center in the countryside, most of the patients are because of accidents caused by border riders. Therefore, in as much as we want to support them, let's also be careful so that we don't end up over-regulating this sector, because what's proposed here are two layers of regulation, one by the NTCA and by the county governments. And when you over-regulate a sector, there's the risk of associated costs, like the taxes, that NTCA will inevitably levy on these, the riders. The county government will levy another set of taxes. And as it is now, many riders, particularly I come from in Bonchari, they are not able to operate because it's become very expensive. The cost of fuel is very high, and many of them are parked their motorbikes. So let's be careful so that we don't add more problems to a sector that is already struggling and over-regulating it. Mr. Speaker, too, as we discuss this further, let's be cognizant that there are other laws that are in place. Have we used them properly to their full extent that we are asking for this amendment? So that if we are saying that NTCA comes in to regulate this sector, it is in itself giving the NTCA absolute powers for regulating this sector without reference to Parliament, like is the practice that any regulating, anybody that is making regulations makes reference to Parliament through the delegated legislation committee. So let's be careful with the wording of this amendment so that we don't take away that power in Parliament, and NTCA and any other entity that is involved in the regulation runs away from Parliament. I'm a member of the delegated legislation committee, and some of the problems we encounter are that these bodies that make regulations sometimes want to avoid Parliament, and they go ahead and make the regulations and publish them and start using them. So this could be an avenue for such bodies making regulations without reference to Parliament, and therefore taking away the role of making laws from Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Bureti.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I'm a member of the Transport Committee.
Just a minute. Honorable Member for Kwanza, you are completely out of order. You can't keep on putting pressure on me to give you a chance to speak, and you are not even on the queue. It's not the way it's done. That's not the way it's done. Go on, Member for Bureti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Wanted to respond also on behalf of the committee. First, I would want to acknowledge the amendments that are being proposed by Honorable Simon Kingara, MP for Ruiru constituency, on the matter that is before us this afternoon. Importantly is that the committee wish to let the House know that we are in support of all the proposals, that the reforms being proposed on the border sector, and also the proposals that are to enforce compliance and enhance safety within the sector. Personally, I am of the opinion that there is so much chaos within the border sector that needs to be relooked, that invites us to relook at all the laws and regulations that govern the border sector. Mr. Speaker, Section 4(2)(a) of the NTSA Act empowers the authority to undertake the registration of all motor vehicles. So the actual question about registration of two-wheeler or three-wheeler motorcycles or any other vehicle that are there has been provided for. It's also the view of the committee, having listened to Honorable Kingara and having listened to the Ministry of Transport through the PS Transport, having listened also to other stakeholders, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, that we thought that the amendments being proposed are already provided for within the NTSA Act. On the question of registration of motor vehicles and also registrations of two-wheeler or three-wheeler motorcycle taxis within the counties, it should be remembered, Mr. Speaker, that registration is a national function, and therefore to be able to co-share this function with the county governments may actually need that we amend our constitution so that we may be able to have those two share. The question actually that was being addressed here, Mr. Chair, is perhaps the introduction of how to share information between the county governments and the national governments, in particular to the registration of taxis and also the vehicles within the counties. Furthermore, the licensing of motorcycles, taxis, is already provided for under the regulations, hence no need to introduce amendments to the NTSA Act. And that the issue of registration of motorcycles by regions, as proposed by Honorable Kingara, will go against the established UN conventions on road traffic. The Road Traffic Convention of 1968, which Kenya is a party to, provides for recognition of national and not regional licenses. And thus the amendment would therefore be in conflict with these statutes that the country has entered into. Secondly, third, actually, Mr. Speaker, the provisions of public service vehicle badges and also the management of the SACCOs, as intimated by the honorable member, may be something that we may be able to pursue within the current provisions of the Act. There were also some proposals by the Kenya Association of Manufacturers about the simplicity by which we can be able to effect these changes or these proposals within the industry, the transport industry. Mr. Speaker, when we met the transport minister through the permanent secretary, they actually informed the committee that there were broader, more elaborate proposals that they had on the safety, on the running of SACCOs, on the management of the whole transport sector, and in particular, border sector, to be able to bring back sanity and to be able to make sure that they are compliant and also avoid the harassment. The whole question of the cost of border borders, the whole question of empowering the border borders, the whole question of actually the hustler movement, and a part of it also are being looked at by the ministry. Therefore, the committee observed as follows, Mr. Speaker, that the proposed amendments in the bill, as formulated by the Honourable Member, were already provided for in the National Transport and Safety Authority Act of number 33 of 2012. Further, the National Transport and Safety Authority Amendment Bill, the National Assembly Bills of number 43 of 2022, emanated from the issues of laxity in implementation, compliance, and enforcement of the existing law and regulations, that the law is clear, the law is adequate, that there is actually no lacuna within our laws to be able to implement these things. It's a call upon actually the Ministry of Interior to be able to see to it that these laws are properly implemented in consultation with the riders and the relevant county governments within which they operate, to be able to facilitate the smooth flow and also the question of sanity within the sector. The NTSA Operations Motor Vehicles Amendment Regulation 2022 provide for the licensing of motor vehicle taxis by the county governments. In March 2022, and as you may be aware, actually, Mr. Speaker, the government launched a national registration processing of 2 and 3-wheeler public service motor vehicles, and the same is to be done within the NTSA portal. There are in existence regulations formulated in 2015 that provide for the motorcycles should have a third-party insurance, PSV, the riders have valid driving licenses, and the operators be registered members of the SACCO. Having considered the bill and taken into account, the committee therefore was of the view and recommends as follows: that the House rejects the National Transport and Safety Authority Amendment Bill and National Assembly Bill number 43 of 2022 in its entirety, and actually the Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transport should review the National Transport and Safety Authority Operations of Motor Vehicles Amendment Regulations 2022 to be able to take care of the issues that were raised by...
Honorable Komingoi, I notice you are reading...
I'm not reading, actually, I'm actually contributing, referring to the notes, report. Sir. Yes. So that we can be able to have the issues that have been raised. Because the whole question, actually, Honorable Kingara was raising up is on only 3 items. 1, registration and compliance to the law. 2, safety. 3, organization of the border industry. It's our opinion, and which we thought through as a committee, that all these are provided for, except that its implementation, its supervision, and the compliance to this law are not being implemented. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you so much. As we proceed, members, allow me to recognize and welcome to the Assembly students from Kamarandi Secondary School, Mbere North in Embu County, and Nyahururu Vision Academy of Oljorok, Nyandarua County. They are welcome to follow proceedings of the House this afternoon. This chance go to the member for Kitui South.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to contribute to this amendment bill that is being proposed by the Honorable Kingara. Honorable Speaker, first I have listened to the member for Bureti. I am a little bit disoriented, but I will still proceed to support the bill because of the subjects that the Honorable Kingara is targeting. Mr. Speaker, ensuring that these border borders are regulated, because, Honorable Speaker, they are in our constituencies and we know the level of disorganization that we see. So whether it's happening in this bill or in a regulation, Mr. Speaker, I would like to state that I support the bill that has been brought. Mr. Speaker, we cannot ignore the importance of border in our county, in our country, in our counties, and in our constituencies. And Mr. Speaker, this is a big business opportunity that has presented itself where our young people, both male and female, are participating, and they are able to bring up their families, pay school fees using boda boda. Honorable Speaker, I would like to support that there is a need to ensure that this registration is done. And when it is being done, if it is possible that it is attached to the driver and the motorbike that they are driving, so that the people at the county and at the national level, including the office of the chiefs and assistant chiefs, are able to tell where these boda bodas are operating, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, also to be able to trace them, if it is possible, even to go further, to trace them, to be able to tell where did they start their journey, which places did they go, and where did they end. Because, Honorable Speaker, this will also deal with the issue of crime. Honorable Speaker, I would also like to link this matter of boda boda to lack of licensing, where most of them are lying in our hospitals. Honorable Speaker, in our level 3, level 4, level 5, and our national hospitals are full of culprits of accidents through the boda boda sector. Clearly, this shows that people are driving these boda bodas without having been trained. Worst, Honorable Speaker, is where we found young people who are underage also being boda boda drivers. Honorable Speaker, this is not even a matter of the change on this bill, but also enforcing the law where people who do not even have identity cards are finding themselves being boda boda in the boda boda sector, participating and getting into accidents, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to encourage the committee and also the Honorable Kingara that as they look at this, it is extremely important also to link with other committees that may be involved in this. Because, Mr. Speaker, we have noticed that our young people are suffering, especially those who have gotten into contracts that they may not understand. Because when someone is buying a boda boda, they do not look at the percentages of the full amount that they have to pay. And, Honorable Speaker, I would like to give an example of an institution that has made many, many Kenyans to suffer, and I'll use the word allegedly because of the business aspect that is attached to this, called WATU. Honorable Speaker, in my constituency, young boda boda riders come to me and they tell me, Mheshimiwa, my motorbike is being taken away by WATU. Another one comes and tells me my boda boda is being taken by WATU. So when I followed up, I realized that it is an institution that has given so many of them the boda bodas. And when I looked at the payments that they've done, some of them are paid up to 160,000, 170,000, and then they lose it at that point. So it is a serious matter that needs to be looked at. As we talk about regulating the boda boda sector itself, we need to look for a way of also protecting these people, such that when they are getting into this contract, there is somebody who assists them to look at how much is it that they are going to pay at the end of the day, and for how long, because some of them have exorbitant percentages, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will not forget the issue of crime. Honorable Speaker, these boda bodas, some of them, because some are very good, but there are others who are involved in crime, stealing, ability to hide, ability to pass without being noticed. Honorable Speaker, this needs to be looked at. And Mr. Speaker, before I sit, I would like to also ask for a way of my young girls to be protected, because, Mr. Speaker, a boda boda driver is a very important person in the villages that we come from. And some of them have the ability to lure the young girls into early sexual activities, immorality. Mr. Speaker, this one, Honorable Speaker, I talk about it as a woman member of parliament, and to say that this also needs to be looked into. It is just indiscipline, but it is clearly linked to some, and I insist on some, of the border drivers, where we have early pregnancies, we have HIV/AIDS, which is being transmitted because of the privilege that they have of transporting these young people. Honorable Speaker, I would like to say that I support the Honorable Kingara, that it is important to have this regulated, and also hearing the concerns of the committee, but I would like to say that I fully support this amendment to the NTSA Act. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity.
Honorable Kingara, I hope you're listening and taking notes. If you listen to what the committee is saying and what members are saying, I'm sure there could be a middle ground on dealing with the most important issues of the day concerning the whole sector. You notice it's now come down to border specifically and how they behave and the rest. And so I hope we can, nudge the bill towards that direction. The member for Sirisia.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me a chance also to contribute on this. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this bill, the amendment bill. The Speaker, border plays a very important role in this country, right from the constituencies where we come from, counties. Honorable Speaker, the regulations that we are debating to put, Mr. Speaker, it must be tough regulations, Mr. Speaker, because NTSA, Mr. Speaker, in my view, I think NTSA is sleeping on job, Honorable Speaker. Why, Mr. Speaker, we have traveled to many countries, like us parliamentarians, Mr. Speaker, and we have seen the regulations and rule of laws that are in those countries, Mr. Speaker. They are respected. But, Mr. Speaker, here in Kenya, the riders do not respect the rule of law because of NTSA maybe not taking action all the time. And, Mr. Speaker, it has resulted into loss of lives. Many people, many families, Mr. Speaker, have lost their life just because of reckless border driving. So, Mr. Speaker, we as a House, as we are going to pass these regulations, Mr. Speaker, that was brought by the Honorable Kingara, Mr. Speaker, we need, as members of this House, to make sure that this bill, we pass it, because we have some lawyers in this House, Mr. Speaker, even as I'm sitting here, in front of me there are two lawyers here. So, Mr. Speaker, they must get involved so that the amendments could be done properly to save lives of our people. The challenge is, Mr. Speaker, that the riders get sometimes, Mr. Speaker, in my view, Mr. Speaker, sometimes they get involved in crime. They can carry people carrying guns, they can carry people carrying drugs like bank and other things, Honorable Speaker. So the regulation must, we must check on that. They contribute immensely, Mr. Speaker, on the economy of this country, Mr. Speaker. They contribute about 10 billion Kenya shillings to our GDP, which is very, that's not little money, Mr. Speaker. So they are important in many aspects. Moving to where a vehicle cannot reach, where there is narrow roads or bad roads, Mr. Speaker, these border riders do important jobs, Mr. Speaker. So members of this House, Mr. Speaker, need to pass this bill, and so that we help these young people who are also struggling to put the food on their table. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Member for Kandui.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also weigh in on the amendment that is before the House. First, I must say that the border sector plays a very, very critical role in our country, not only in offering jobs for our young and very desperate people, but also in contributing to the economy of this particular country. I know for a fact, Honorable Speaker, maybe I will not be in this particular House without the contribution of the border sector in moving us to all the places to seek for votes. I have looked at the amendment, Honorable Speaker, and the bill seeks to amend the NTSA Act to introduce, to establish systems and procedures for regional registration and licensing of 2- and 3-wheeled public motorcycle taxis. My starting point was, do we have a lacuna in the law, or do we have an omission in the law? And my quick starting point was the NTSA Act itself. And I've looked at the NTSA Act, and particularly Section 4 of that particular Act, Honorable Speaker. The Act provides for the actual registration and licensing. So when it comes to whether there's a lacuna in the law, I would say there isn't a lacuna in the law with regard to licensing and registration of border. But what problem do we have? Of course, Honorable Speaker, if you move to our respective constituencies and areas we represent, and you visit our hospitals, you will find specific wards that have been set aside for people who have been involved in accidents that are involving borders. If you walk to the police station, the traffic sections, you will find a lot of motorbikes that have been parked there that have been involved in road accidents. It's not also lost on us, Honorable Speaker, that just even a week ago, we lost an honorable member of this House, courtesy of a border incident. So as we move up on this, we need to ask ourselves the key question: what is the difficulty? What is the problem we have in the border sector? In my view, Honorable Speaker, it is not the absence of regulations and laws. I agree with the spirit and intentment of the bill, which seeks to drive sanity into the border sector. But I do not agree with amendments being proposed for the following reasons. One, the amendment seeks to introduce regional licensing. I am looking at this particular instance where, for example, a border person is licensed.
Dr. Buruku, you've spoken on this bill. What is out of order? On this particular bill, you've already spoken.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the school at the gallery comes from my constituency, very north. And
Honorable Buruku, that can be a point of order, really. That can be a point of order. We note that you have students from your constituency here, and that's it. You'll allow the member to proceed now with his contribution.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was worried what was out of order, but thank you for protecting me. I can proceed. The bill seeks to introduce regional licensing. I'm imagining, Your Honor, if, Honorable Speaker, if a border rider is licensed, let's say in Bungoma County, and is carrying a passenger to, let's say, Busia County, where he is not licensed, what will happen to him? When he reaches there, he will be deemed an unlicensed rider, and is bound to fall into problems with the traffic and NTSA. I have a problem with the issue of licensing. Two, if we look at, of course, this is the National Assembly. The National Assembly legislates nationally. If we look at Schedule 4 of our Constitution, the Constitution is very clear that matters relating to transport and licensing within the counties are basically left with the counties. Are we, Honorable Speaker, by virtue of this particular amendment, trying to take over the work of our county assemblies that have a duty to license transport and motorcycles and borders within their respective areas of jurisdiction? The third issue which I have is that in my short search, I have discovered there are several pieces of legislation that have been enacted by this House that will tackle the issue we are having at the moment. And specifically, I want to make reference to the Public Motorcycles Regulation 95 of the NTSA Operation of Motorcycle Amendment Regulations of 2022 that were passed by this House, that were to deal with the issues of licensing and regulation of border borders within the respective centers. I also wish to make reference to Legal Notice number 121 of 2022, NTSA Operation of Motorcycles Amendment Regulations 2022, that provide for the registration of border taxis, SACCOs, as well as their licensing by county governments. So, Honorable Speaker, while I agree with the spirit and intent of the Act, my only difficulty is, are we not trying to legislate over what we already have legislation? What we need to enforce, basically, is basically the NTSA to be able to do its mandate. Because I think there is a lapse on the part of the NTSA in discharging its mandate. Otherwise, I support the spirit and intent of the amendment, but I do not support the amendments because the committee, which actually is a committee of this House, the Transport Committee, invited all the stakeholders to make their presentations on this bill. And it has brought its verdict before this House. And this verdict is these amendments ought to be rejected because they are already covered up by specific legislation that is there. And Honorable Speaker, as a member of this House, I go by the committee of this House in rejecting the amendments. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Kisauni.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kunipa fursa ya kupenyeza sauti yangu kwenye uzungumzi huu wa bodaboda. Mheshimiwa Spika, bodaboda ni usafiri muhimu sana, inatumika katika taifa nzima. Taifa zima, hukuna mahali utaenda mjini, vijijini ukakosa hilo neno bodaboda ama ukakosa kuwaona katika shughuli zao. Mheshimiwa Spika, vile vile bodaboda imepunguza uhalifu. Vijana wengi wamejihusisha na kupeleka pikipiki ili kusudi wapate riziki zao. Ni njia nzuri sana ambayo imesaidia upungufu mkubwa katika upande wa ajira. Kwa sababu ingelikuwa hakuna hiyo bodaboda, ingekuwa na shida kubwa sana msongamano wa vijana wasiokuwa na kazi. Na bodaboda, Mheshimiwa Spika, katika sehemu zingine zinatumika kama ambulance za kubebea wagonjwa, hasa sehemu ambazo barabara zao ni mbaya. Kwa hivyo bodaboda ni jambo muhimu sana, ama ni usafiri muhimu, ama ni sekta muhimu ambayo inahitaji kwamba iangaliwe kwa zuri na kuboreshwa vipi wataendeleza shughuli zao. Ni kweli ajali ni nyingi sana katika upande huo, na hata kama wazungumzaji waliozungumza, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza ziko bodi katika hospitali ambazo zimetengewa watu wa bodaboda tu, kwa sababu wanaletwa kwa wingi sana, na ile hasa inasababishwa na kutokuwa na mafunzo ama kwenda training kuhusu upelekaji huo. Na ni sekta ambayo ina umaskini mkubwa sana. Maskini wengi sana wanatumia hiyo bodaboda ama shughuli hiyo za kibiashara hizo. Sasa wengi wanashindwa kwenda katika mafunzo, shule za mafunzo, kwa sababu ni ghali. Sasa tuje na taratibu kuonesha kwamba kule pia katika kufundishwa kwao kuwe na tahfifu, kuwe na fedha kidogo ambazo wale mwanabodaboda anaweza kwenda kufundishwa ili ajue sheria za kanuni za barabara. Kwa sababu wengi wanashindwa kwenda kwa sababu hali ni ngumu. Yeye mwenyewe bodaboda anatakaniwa mpe mwenye Honda 500 kama ni 1000, akitoka pale na shilingi 400. So Mheshimiwa Spika, tuje na taratibu hapa tuone vipi wao watakuwa na tahfifu ya kwenda kufundishwa ile ujuzi ili kusudi waendeleze shughuli hiyo. Bodaboda na tuktuk ni kitu muhimu sana ambazo sisi kama bunge la kitaifa tuje na taratibu ya kuona vipi tutawasaidia. Hata serikali za ugatuzi ni haki wao wawekee viegezo ama wawekee sehemu ambazo wao wataekeza zile bodaboda zao, hasa huu wakati wa mvua, wakati wa jua, wao watajengewa sehemu ambazo kutakuwa na nafasi ya wao kujikinga na vitu hivyo kwa ukali wa mvua na jua. Na hata vile tunasema sisi wapeane helmet, kila mtu avae helmet, lazima watengezewe sehemu ambazo helmet zitakuwa nyingi iziwe pale kuna wao wenyewe watakuwa na taratibu ya kwamba ikiwa abiria huyu ashachukuliwa ameenda, akirudi helmet ile inafutwa, sio ama ni koti lile linafuliwa, sio kwamba tu linarudi inaweza kuleta maradhi. Kwa hivyo ni mambo mengi ambayo tunahitaji sisi tuyapange taratibu kuhakikisha tunaikuza sekta hii ili kusudi iendeleze kwa watoto wetu kwa maslaha ya vijana wetu ambao sasa inawasaidia kama ajira. Mheshimiwa Spika, sitaenda zaidi ya hapa na kushukuru kwa kunipa nafasi. Pia imebaki siku moja au mbili kwenda kwa sikukuu yetu, na watakia Waislamu wote sikukuu njema. Mungu awabariki inshallah. Asante.
Asante, kila laheri. Member for Nambale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to add my voice to this particular motion. Mr. Speaker, indeed, the border sector contributes greatly to the development of our nation. We will appreciate and note that were it not for the border riders, transport within our rural areas will be greatly hampered. However, we need to look at the issues that the young riders are facing. One key issue is the issue of the licensing and training of the riders. These border drivers, Mr. Speaker, will note that due to high fees on acquisition of driving licenses, majority of them, they are just trained within the villages, and they drive the motorcycles without the requisite license. So it will be important for the National Transport and Safety Authority to look into the policies and formulate, come up with the policies which they can advise the national government on how to regulate the border sector. And one of the reforms that I invite the mover of the motion to look into critically is the issue of the licensing and training of the drivers. Because as we say that it's a form of employment, due to desperate situations some young boys are faced with, they train within a day, the following day he's a driver and a rider, and they carry passengers to various destinations. So when you find them on the road, they even don't know the road signs. They don't know when to make a turn. They don't know when even to, they even don't know how to use the features on the motorbike. And that's why we find that we have quite a high number of road accidents contributed by these motor vehicle, by these border riders. So it will be important looking at the National Transport and Safety Function. One of their key mandates is to license motor vehicles and also advise the government on national policy with regard to the road transport system. But I believe that just leaving on the issue of regulating on licensing within the county as put by my colleague, the Honorable Makali, that will not solve the problem that we are facing currently in this particular sector. We need to ensure that the borders, because this is a key source of employment for the young boys, we need to ensure that we provide the national transport, the NTSA, provide them the necessary training, advise them on how to use the road signs, understand the road signs, so that we avoid the unnecessary accidents that are being caused daily on our roads. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, we also note and appreciate that we have had various incidents whereby borders are being accused of harboring criminals. But we ask ourselves, has the government taken initiative to sit down with this sector so that they identify their leadership to read out the criminals among the border riders? So these are some of the key issues that we need to come up with, so that as we came up with a streamlining on the matatu sector where we have circles, even this border circles sector, we need to understand that this particular rider comes from this particular group of riders, so that those who are taking advantage of the lacuna in our regulations to come and commit crime and so that and the whole nation to condemn border borders should not have this particular advantage. So I therefore urge the move of the motion to go beyond the proposed amendment that we have gone through and come up with the, more policies, especially that will move the National Transport and Safety Authority to broaden the regulation that can assist our young brothers who are in this particular sector. I rise to support the motion.
It is a bill. Member for Kichache North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also put a word on the amendment and of the regulations of the border sector. This sector is one of those sectors that contribute a lot to the economy of this country, and we appreciate the young boys and girls who are in this sector who put a lot of effort to make sure that they contribute a lot to this country. So I also support these amendments because the border sector is very disorganized. Is one of those disorganized sectors that we need to put in place. We need to put measures that will assist the young boys who are in this sector, because the guys who are in this sector have happened to the people who are in this sector happen to cause a lot of accidents because of lack of training, lack of proper driving skills, and there are other people who have also gotten into this sector who have taken advantage of the people who are in this sector and have become thieves. They end up using the border sector to go and steal from people, use guns and steal from other people, and it has also caused human trafficking from other places to our areas. So I also request that I also support this motion because these young people need to be assisted, and there are people who have gotten into this sector who are very young and need to be assisted because the young boys who are below 18 years have gotten into this, whereas they are supposed to be in school. So I want to support Honorable Kingara on these regulations and support the entire regulations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Madeira.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. At the onset, I want to support this amendment bill by Honorable Kingara. In fact, or indeed, the border sector is a very important sector in this country. Currently, as per the statistics, we have 1.8 million registered border riders. Their contribution to the economy is 1.5 billion Kenya shillings per day. That translates to 45 billion Kenya shillings per month and a whopping 550 billion Kenya shillings per year. That is the contribution to the GDP. That shows you, or that demonstrates the importance of this sector. Why are we supporting this amendment bill? Definitely there is a problem. And every member in this house knows that there's a problem. There is total madness in the border industry. You know, our young men and women, when they join border, sometimes, Mr. Speaker, is like a death sentence. Either you'll be shot by police. If you are not shot by police, either then you'll be involved in accidents. If you are not involved in accidents, the other one is either your motor vehicle, maybe your motorcycle or your border, maybe you'll be stolen. At that time, you find that you lose your life. So we need to regulate. Number one, I looked at the amendment bill by Honorable Kingara, and Honorable Kingara recommends, or in the bill, the registration of the border riders at the county level. We know very well that NTSA is not that efficient, even in managing what they currently have. So if this role is taken to the county to register these border riders, I think it will be more efficient for the registration than being left to the NTSA, National Transport Safety Authority. Mr. Speaker, I ask ourselves, if this House feels that this industry is properly regulated, would you encourage your son or your daughter to join this border industry? And I know the answer to many members here is no, because there is a problem. There is a lacuna somewhere, and this is what this amendment bill is trying to cure. The other issue, Mr. Speaker, according to the amendment bill of the honorable member, it recommends the issuance of badges to the border riders and also to the tuk-tuk drivers. You know, Mr. Speaker, if you go out here and you take an Uber or a boat that maybe that is a vehicle, you are very confident that this vehicle has an insurance and the driver has a license. But when you go and take a border, you are not sure. You don't know whether the young man or woman is licensed or even they have insurance. That means there is a problem. And this is what this amendment bill is trying to cure. With these few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I fully support the amendment bill of the honorable member. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Kabondo Kasipul. And members, just to remind you, when you log in with your card, always ensure that you press the login button so that you are well logged in.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I too, at onset, support the amendment. Mr. Speaker, as has been said by most of our colleagues here today, this morning, the border sector plays a critical role in the economy. Mr. Speaker, it is a source of employment for many of our youths across the country. Mr. Speaker, I want to say here that the border, in my view, is the first line of security for our constituencies. For the simple reason that these border people are the ones who know who is new, who has come into the constituency or into the town or into the market. They also carry people to various destinations, and they know exactly where these people have gone to. And so if you want to track, and we have used them in a lot of times, if you want to track a crime or something, the first people who would probably know are the border people. And therefore, I would not want to castigate them, and I want them to be properly organized so that we can benefit, or they can benefit from training, they can benefit from licensing, which we have done in my constituency. We have paid for their training, we have given them licenses, we've paid for those licenses for those who have come forward to go for the training. Therefore, I want to say that yes, they should be licensed, but again, I want to say that this is already there in the Act. The Act already provides for registration and licensing. What we need most importantly is to enforce some of these regulations. I therefore, not to take too much time, once again, I want to say that I support, and I also support the idea of regional licensing so that we can place them. We know where they are coming from. I hope that there will be, I've not seen it, Mr. Mheshimiwa Kingara. I have not seen the part where what happens across borders of the different regions. Have we catered for that in the Act? I have not seen that in the amendment, so that there is no frustration that we see, particularly with the police, when something like this is enforced and it's not clear on what exactly is supposed to happen. Once again, thank you very much. I support. Thank you.
That would happen when you have regional licensing, and then now every governor or every police officer want to ask, so this is from Siaya going to Busia, do you need another license? Is it another rate-seeking opportunity? Yeah. You know?
Yes.
The member for Matungu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to also contribute to this bill by the honorable member Honorable Simon Nganga. And Mr. Speaker, this bill is talking about the regulation of the most important sector for the youth in this country, and that's the border sector. The border sector, Mr. Speaker, provides employment for millions of young people in this country. And it is due to that fact that we as leaders in the community, we have to support any initiative that aims to regulate this important sector for the youth. Mr. Speaker, as you know, this country has a problem with youth employment, and therefore any sector that actually goes out of its way to employ the youth must be supported. Mr. Speaker, you talked about the bill and members talking about the border all the time. It is because the motorbike business is very, very prominent in this country, and it is spread across every village, every town, whether small or big, and it employs millions of young people. It's a very important sector because it is deep into the lives of Kenyans. For example, every morning, very early in the morning, you will see bodabodas ferrying children to school. And after ferrying children to school, some of them ferry teachers to the same schools. And they transport various people to various businesses or places of their work. And therefore, it means it's part and parcel of the lives of Kenyans. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, this sector, because of some reason, it has strongly been exploited by some people. For example, most of these young people who do this boda business are exploited by politicians, the business people, and the criminals because of the low income involved in it. It is easier to lure these young people into dangerous or dubious business by additional funds or something like that. You will find that during the campaigns, they are extremely exploited by the politicians. If a politician wants to maybe cause a problem somewhere, the first people that are used are the bodabodas. And therefore, it is very important that as a country and as a parliament, we come up with measures on how to regulate this industry so that we can protect these young people from this exploitation. Mr. Speaker, it is this sector that is also prone to extreme harassment by the law enforcers. That's the police and the county government askaris. They are harassed from left, center, and right everywhere they go. Every day, the rules are changed. Do not pass this route, you must pass that route. And so most of them are arrested on a daily basis. It is because maybe the law enforcers are taking advantage of the lack of regulation to exploit these young people. And when they are arrested and their motorbikes are impounded, they have to give out a lot of money before they are released or before their motorbikes are released. Mr. Speaker, in this country, already we have the motorcycle culture. It is already deep in us. And therefore, as a house, the most important thing to do to assist these young people is to put regulations into place, because the culture is not going to go away soon. It is deep and it is actually working out for so many people. Even the business people, those who are starting business, we have very many people who have bought motorbikes and they have placed them on the roads and they have employed these young people. So therefore, it's not just a business for the boda riders, it's also people. In fact, I know of some members of parliament who have invested in the motorbike industry. Mr. Speaker, sir, finally, I don't agree with the fact that the licensing of these bodas should be taken to the county governments.
ni moja ya nguzo za 5 za Uislamu na ni muhimu sana kwa kila mmoja azingatie kutilia maanani kufunga katika mwezi huu mtukufu wa Ramadhani.
Katika sisi hujibidiisha ili tuweze kuchuma thawabu ambazo tunaweza kujipatia ndani ya mwezi wa Ramadhani.